Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto become guardian of Konoha part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Seconds earlier, with Kakashi. What? Why did Rin jump in front of him? They had to get back to Konoha. He had to keep his promise to Obito. He had to protect Rin, even if it cost him his own life. Because he would never abandon his comrades. He had already lost one friend and he couldn't bear to lose another. It was too late for him to stop. He was already charging at full speed towards their pursuers and Rin had leaped only several feet in front of him. Kakashi felt a blinding stab of pain in his left Sharingan eye and the three Tomo began to spin wildly and morph into something else. Suddenly a black vortex appeared between the two Konoha shinobi, revealing the back of a hooded figure with his back turned to Kakashi. Kakashi's Chidori plunged straight through the man's back and out through his chest, stopping his lightning-covered hand mere inches from Rin. Rin looked up at the white spiral-looking mask in disbelief. She was going to die. She had to die. She couldn't return to Konoha. If she returned, Kiri would unleash the Sanbai they'd sealed inside of her and unleash havoc upon her beloved village. The spiral mask, inches in front of her face, slowly opened outward, formed the eye hole, revealing a face she'd never expected to see again. Obito, Rin whispered in shock. The Chidori must have hit her, she must actually be dead, and her closest friend was there to escort her spirit to the afterlife. Rin. Obito replied with a weak smile, blood leaking from the corners of his mouth. Kakashi pulled his no longer lightning-covered hand out of Obito's back, remaining conscious, and standing long enough for the two former teammates to lock eyes. The pain in his eye was unbearable, and his vision was slowly fading to black. Obito thought Kakashi before he finally lost consciousness, and collapsed into the cold mud. What was that Sharingan? I've never seen one like that, thought the Uchiha as he scanned his surroundings to find he was surrounded by no less than 40 Kiri and Bu. Even with Hashirama's cells, with the internal damage he had received from Kakashi's Chidori, there was no way he could win this fight. Obito collapsed to his knees, laboring to breathe, blood pouring from the open wound in his back and chest. The lightning-infused chakra had clearly done its job, as Obito felt his heart palpitate. It had not even hit his heart directly, but the electricity of the attack was enough to damage other internal organs. If it wasn't for the Shodiame cells, I'd already be dead. At least Rin is still alive. Speaking of which, Rin, run, Obito said before he too lost consciousness and collapsed in a heap next to his old friend. Somewhere in IWA, with Minato. For some reason the spiky blonde-haired jounin, Namake's Minato, felt a gut-wrenching feeling in the pit of his stomach as he looked across the field of dead IWA shinobi. The feeling wouldn't be unwarranted, considering the sight before him and what he had done mere moments earlier, but some instinct told him that his former genin team was in trouble. Shikaku, I believe you can handle it from here, said Minato before disappearing in his signature yellow flash. What was that about Shikaku? Asked another jounin with light blonde hair and pupilless blue eyes. I have no idea, Inoichi, replied the young jounin sporting two deep gashes above and below his right eye. What do you think Yoshino is going to say about those? Inoichi, his long-term friend and teammate. Troublesome, Shikaku muttered as he wiped the blood dripping down his face. With Rin. Rin was out of options. Her death was her last hope of protecting Konoha. She couldn't kill herself, that damn seal prevented it, and she couldn't hope to defeat all the Kiri and Bu. She couldn't run, that's what they wanted, they would just herd her towards Konoha like they have been. Even if she did get away, that would mean abandoning her two closest friends, and she had already lost Obito once. There was no way out of this. Without any weapons, the Kiri shinobi had disarmed her before her escape. She got into her taijutsu stance and prepared to fight the 40+ ANBU surrounding her and her former teammates. They'll probably just carry my unconscious body to the village and release the Sanbai anyways, so I might as well try to take as many of them down before that happens. If it wasn't for the masks covering their faces, Rin would have seen the cold smiles on the faces of the shinobi of the village of the Bloody Mist. That is until they saw a yellow flash that was known to mean almost certain death. The yellow flash appeared next to Kakashi's unconscious form, taking stock of the situation at hand. Obito? Minato thought in surprise, but that was a question for later. Rin, start healing those two, he said, motioning towards Obito and Kakashi. Leave the rest to me. Minato let loose a barrage of three-pronged kunai before vanishing in a Hiraishin. All around the battlefield there were flashes that would be followed by a Kiri and Bu dropping dead. Within 2 minutes the Kiri shinobi were no more than lifeless bodies drowning in an ocean of their own blood. Several days later, in the Hokage's office. It appears that she was branded with the Kinkaju no Fuda, forbidden individual curse seal, on her heart, and had the standby sealed inside of her. I was able to suppress the seal for the time being, but Kushina is working on a way to permanently remove it. I was also able to strengthen the seal, keeping the standby sealed inside of her. Minato reported to the Sandaime Hokage. As for Obito, he says he was found by Uchiha Madara after his alleged death. He says Madara repaired his body with the cells of the Shodaime Hokage himself. Tsunade-sama has taken a look at him and has confirmed that he does possess Senju Hashirama's cells. On top of that, both he and Kakashi have awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought out loud. This is troubling news indeed, the aging Hokage contemplated as he puffed on his pipe. What do you make of all this, Minato? I don't know. Obito said Madara never told him about his plans, only that he had one, but he needed an apprentice to help him. That could mean that he's too weak to complete whatever his plan is on his own. With Obito gone, that could leave him vulnerable, said Minato, even though he was just as confused about the situation at hand as everyone else who knew about it. I get the feeling that this is all related. It seems too good to be true for Obito to arrive just in time to save Rin. If that is the case, and Madara did orchestrate this, for whatever reason, I doubt it went according to his plan, said Hiruzen more to himself than Minato. You think that Madara intended for Rin and Kakashi to die? Asked Minato, really more of a statement than a question. More like he intended for Obito to see his two closest friends die, clarified the middle-aged Hokage. The question is why Hiruzen steepled his fingers under his chin for a moment before turning his attention back to the yellow-haired Jounin. You have done well, Minato, now go home and spend time with your family. I'm sure young Naruto will be very pleased to see you after such a long time away, Hiruzen said, mustering up a small smile at the thought of the Yellow Flash's little clone. Thank you, Hokage-sama, and with that Minato vanished in a yellow flash. I'll never get used to that, Hiruzen muttered. Send Orochimaru here, he said to his hidden ANBU guard. At the Namikaze's residence, Kushina and Naruto had just finished lunch, and she and the 2-year-old were about to head to the park to meet with Kushina's old friend and teammate Uchiha Mikoto and her son Itachi. Naruto's head shot up suddenly, surprising Kushina. "Tu-chan is home," he cheered, waving his arms, running into the living room. Tu-chan, Tu-chan, we're going to the park. Can you come and play ninja with Itachi and me?" I'll never know how Naruto always seems to know when his dad is around, thought Kushina, a little jealous of the current adoration her son was showing her husband. A laughing Minato appeared in the doorway with Naruto sitting up on his shoulders. "Of course I'll come play ninja with you and Itachi," he said as he walked over to Kushina and gave her a kiss on the lips. "Yuck," Naruto said, miming vomiting. "Oh yeah, you think that's gross, see mirror you little brat," Kushina mused as she showered the little 2-year-old with kisses. It was uncanny how much Naruto looked like his father. They had the same bright blue eyes and golden blonde hair, not a single thing on young Naruto's face to make him look anything different than his father did at his age. "Ka-chan, stop it!" Naruto was able to get out between laughing fits. "We're going to be late to play with Itachi." The Hokage's office. "You summoned me, Hokage-sama," said a thin, ghostly pale man with waist-length black hair and yellow eyes with slits for pupils. "Yes, Orochimaru, please come in," greeted Hiruzen. "I have a mission for you. I believe only you or Jiraiya are fit to handle it, but seeing as how he is currently at Mount Myoboku and we are unable to contact him, you are the only suitable choice." "Kakuku, I'm all ears, sensei. What is it that requires a Sannin to accomplish?" Orochimaru asked, his lips curling up into a smile at the prospect of a mission requiring one of his caliber. "We have received information that Uchiha Madara is still alive," Hiruzen stated with a puff from his pipe. Not much is known about his whereabouts, however. As far as we know, he is hiding somewhere around Ta no Kuni and Takigakure no Sato. Needless to say, this is a long-term S-rank mission. This does sound like something worthy of my talents. Yes, sensei, I accept the mission. Orochimaru could barely hide his joy. Uchiha Madara, just imagine what I could accomplish with the information I can gather from such a man. I want you to assemble a 4-man squad for this mission, and bring at least one Uchiha. I believe they would want a hand in avenging their reputation after the actions of that man," said Sarutobi. "It would be a slap in the face to kill the most powerful Uchiha in history without their knowledge, and I am sure they would want a hand in such a mission." "Kakuku, this just keeps getting better and better." Mountain's graveyard. "I see," stated Madara in a deceptively calm tone. No matter, he was a weak one anyways. Really more of a last resort than anything. But that still poses the problem of finding one to complete the plan until my return. "What do you want me to do now, Madara-sama?" asked the white half of the strange plant-like creature known as Zetsu. You should have just allowed me to eat him. It's doubtful that we will be able to find another suitable replacement so easily. The black half continued. Yes, that may pose a problem. Additionally, with young Obito in hand and his curse-sealed destroyed Konoha no doubt knows about my existence by now. We may be able to use that to our advantage. Madara thought aloud with a sickening smile. Konoha, October 10th, 3 years later. A deafening roar rang out throughout the village, followed by the sound of explosions along with the overwhelming feeling of an intense foul chakra permeating the air. As soon as she felt it, Rin knew exactly what was happening. That chakra had the same feeling as the chakra sealed inside of her, only many magnitudes stronger. Kushina-san, Rin whispered, knowing Kushina was the only other Jinchuriki in the village. She was, after all, the one who trained Rin to harness the power of her bijou, Isabu. It turns out Isabu, though still a grouch, was much more amicable than the Kyuubi, current events only serving to further prove that point. What's happening to Ka-chan? Asked the 5-year-old Naruto. Rin was at a loss for words. She knew that as an Uzumaki, Kushina would be able to survive her bijou being extracted, but with situation at hand Rin didn't know if anyone was going to be safe. Everything will be fine, Naruto-kun, Rin said, oblivious to the fact that Naruto asked specifically about his mother rather than the potent dark chakra polluting the village. He didn't know about the bijou. That was a very closely guarded S-rank secret. From where they were standing, Naruto, Obito, and Rin could see the Kyuubi towering over the buildings destroying the village. They could also see shinobi swarming to attack, as well as a giant toad and slug to poof into existence to fight off the fox demon. Gigi. Tsunade Ba-chan. Jiraiya-ji-san. Naruto exclaimed as his surrogate grandparents appeared to defend the village. Rin looked over at Obito, who nodded in understanding. They had to get Naruto somewhere safe. Rin using Isabu and Obito with his Mangekyo Sharingan could prove to be essential to the safety of the village. I'll take him to the Uchiha compound. Mikoto-san will take care of him. Obito said, you go ahead, I'll be right behind you. Obito grabbed Naruto by the shoulder and disappeared into a vortex centered around his eye. I love it when he takes charge, Rin thought before she took off towards the battle. It wasn't often that Obito took control, but when he did it really got her juices flowing. No time for that now, I'll just save those thoughts for later and jump him when I have the chance. The Uchiha compound. Obito and Naruto appeared out of a black vortex on Mikoto's doorstep, surprising the beautiful raven-haired Uchiha woman. Kami, Obito! You know I hate it when you do that, Mikoto exclaimed half-heartedly. Sorry, Wani-chan, but there was no time for more conventional methods of travel. Do you mind watching Naruto-kun? I have to go fight a 100-foot demon fox, Obito said matter-of-factly. Mikoto gave her adoptive brother a blank stare. Only you could manage to make something so serious sound so normal. But yes, I'll watch Naruto-kun here. Thanks, Wani-chan, replied the 17-year-old cyclopic Uchiha with a wide grin before he seemingly got sucked into his own eye. Mikoto sighed and worriedly looked back towards the village where the Kyuubi was wreaking havoc. She looked down at Naruto and noticed the panic and fear in his eyes. Of course he looks so scared. He's just a child, this chakra must be overwhelming for him. Come with me, Naruto-kun, we'll be much safer in the Uchiha shelter. Naruto, however, wasn't scared of the Kyuubi, but of what he felt much further away. Mikoto-san, Tu-san and Ka-san are in trouble. Naruto-kun, your parents are both incredibly powerful, I'm sure they'll be fine, said Mikoto with a comforting smile, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Now come on, let's go get Itachi and Sasuke and get to safety. Naruto followed Mikoto inside to retrieve his friend and said friend's little brother. Down the hall of the traditional Japanese home they found a pajama-clad Itachi carrying a swaddled Sasuke towards them. Ka-chan, what's going on? He asked sleepily. It was late, far past Naruto's bedtime. The only reason he was out was because he couldn't sleep and his babysitters were getting restless. They couldn't partake in their usual activities in their former sensei's home, and were happy to go for a walk to relieve the tension. I'll explain when we're somewhere safe, said Mikoto, leading the boys to the far end of the Uchiha compound. Miles outside of Konoha, undisclosed location. A masked man in a black cloak with 2 ninjatos secured in an X across his back stood before him. Minato had already gotten Kushina and their newborn twins to safety. Now he had to defeat the man standing just 10 yards in front of him. Who are you? Why did you attack my village? Minato asked, not really expecting an answer, but to his surprise he got one. I am Madara Uchiha. I decided to leave Konoha in peace until you sent assassins after me, the masked man said in a deep, commanding voice. Don't worry about them, your assassins are all dead. he said, noticing Minato's eyes widen at the news of the assassination team sent after Madara. They were all very easy to kill, Madara added with a hidden smile. Now show me how weak the Hokage have become, he finished with a sneer. Minato deftly flung a three-pronged kunai from his hip in the direction of Madara and dashed to the left, releasing more of his signature kunai seemingly aimed at his opponent. The masked man leapt into the air to avoid the flurry of kunai aimed at him, only to be met with a yellow flash and a hard kick to his head, which he deflected mid-air. Madara spun in the air, sending a kick at Minato's head, only to be met with air as Minato vanished once more, only to reappear directly below him. How is he so fast? Even with my Sharingan I can't keep track of his movements. Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire release, Great Fireball Jutsu, Madara said, sending a massive fireball down towards his enemy. As expected, Minato flashed away, straight to a kunai out of the area of effect of his jutsu. So you flashed to your precious kunai? Very well. Now I just have to get the timing down, Madara thought as his Sharingan spun into the shape of a curved three-pronged shuriken with a tomo extending from the inside of each point. Minato let loose another barrage of kunai, which Madara opted to block with his ninjato. Just as Minato expected him to do, Minato flashed to a kunai a split second before Madara was about to deflect it. Blocking the sword with said kunai, Minato thrusted a Rasengan aimed at Madara's head. To his dismay, however, Minato met an invisible force momentarily freezing him in place. Madara smirked beneath his mask and swatted the kunai out of Minato's hand, then brought his ninjato forward aimed at Minato's throat. Minato regained his movement and slapped the blade to the side with his open palm before vanishing in another flash, only to reappear 20 yards away where one of his deflected kunai had landed. That should be enough to give me a considerable terrain advantage, but what was that? It was like I was paralyzed the moment I touched my kunai. Minato was about to launch another offensive utilizing the kunai already scattered across the battlefield until he saw all his weapons raise into the air and point towards him. What? The kunai shot towards him, forcing Minato to dodge the hail of his own weapons. Once the kunai passed him, however, they seemingly changed directions and flew at him again, and again, and again, until Minato found himself completely surrounded by kunai flying at him from all directions. This is bad, Minato thought as he tried to flash to one of the kunai surrounding him in a dome, only to have the other weapons turn to him and continue to fly at him. This is really bad, he thought, deflecting and dodging the hail of knives. That speed of yours is useless when your own tools are what's being used to attack you, Madara said with a cruel laugh as he watched Minato be cut by a few of the flying kunai. Minato glanced over at Madara momentarily, only to see him standing in the exact same spot as when he initiated the attack. In fact, he was standing in the exact same position. Minato's brief distraction proved to be disastrous as one of the blades lodged itself into Minato's thigh, with another one getting stuck into his back. Enough of this, Minato ducked underneath two kunai sailing towards his head and slapped the ground with his open palm and leapt into the air to avoid another flurry of knives aimed at his previous location. Minato threw the kunai in hand straight at Madara's face and flashed to it. The kunai caught up to him with blinding speed and Minato ducked once more, planting his hand on the ground, before throwing the kunai at Madara once more, this time at point-blank range. Madara dodged out of the way of the kunai, causing a momentary halt to his assault, before stopping once more and continuing his attack on Minato. Minato charged towards him once more, poised to strike with a Rasengan before being frozen 5 feet. Flash back to the marking he had made before his attack. As I expected, he can't move while using that telekinetic power of his, and it seems he can only freeze me in place within about 5 feet. Minato was ready to attack again, hopefully for the last time, before Madara sheathed his ninjato and stood up straight, causing all of Minato's kunai to fall to the ground. You live up to the title of Hokage, Namikaze Minato. He said, this isn't the last time you and I will meet. Madara then sunk into the earth. Fuck. Minato cursed loudly. I almost had him. The fight had only lasted for about 3 minutes. If that was Madara, then I'm sure he had something else up his sleeve, so why did he leave so suddenly? Meanwhile, in Konoha, Minato appeared in a flash next to his predecessor, Sarutobi Hiruzen. We've managed to pin down the Kyuubi, for now, Hiruzen said, unfazed by Minato's sudden appearance. But we won't be able to keep it that way for long. He may possess the Mokuton, but his aptitude for it is a far cry from that of the Shodaime. Hiruzen continued, referring to Obito. And the Kyuubi is much more powerful than the Sanbai. Hiruzen finished. Leave the rest to me, Hiruzen-sama, Minato said as he looked at the Kyuubi held down by a combination of Obito's Mokuton, the perfect transformation of Rin into the Sanbai, and Gamabunta with Jiraiya standing on its head. Kushina won't survive the resealing, and an Uzumaki is the only one capable of being the vessel of this beast. Minato looked down in shame for what he was about to do. Minato threw a three-pronged kunai in front of the fox demon and vanished only to flash before it seconds later with his two newborn twins cradled in each arm. The best I can do is lessen the burden on each of you, Minato said with a look of defeat. Although the damage could have been much worse if not for the actions of his students, Hiruzen, Tsunade, and his master, the village was still thoroughly decimated. The fact that it had come to this weighed heavy in his heart. I'm sorry, Mito. Ashina. Minato looked down at the two sleeping infants and laid them on the ground. Using the blood from his numerous open wounds, Minato swiftly drew seals on the bellies of his children and around the immediate area. Minato quickly went through a long string of hand seals before placing both palms down on top of the seals drawn on the baby boy and girl. The Kyuubi let loose one last roar of protest before the orange chakra it was composed of began to swirl and funnel into the two sets of seals. The great beast began to struggle, flailing its tails and limbs. The Kyuubi threw the summons off of him as well as the sanbai, then shattered the wooden tendrils tying him down, but it was too late for him to make use of his newfound freedom as he was sucked inside the bellies of his two new vessels. I trust the future of Konoha to you, Minato said with a sad smile and a glint of hope in his eyes. Gamabunta dispelled, the remnants of the wooden tendrils holding the giant fox in place receded, and Rin returned to her normal form. Hiruzen, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Obito, and Rin all gathered around Minato and his two children, looking down at the two new Jinchuriki. Well, that sucks, said Obito, only to receive a stern angry look from his girlfriend. Fuck. There goes sexy fun time for at least a month. I'm such an idiot. The gates of Konoha, 30 minutes after the Kyuubi attack. Hatake Kakashi, Mato Gai, Sarutobi Asuma, and Yuhi Kurenai reached the gates after a long journey back from Ta no Kuni. They were returning from their mission, investigate the disappearances of several shinobi teams dispatched to the area, ultimately turning up nothing, which in and of itself was something to cause concern, when the group of young jounin saw smoke rising in the direction of Konoha and sped back to the village. The group arrived at the gates only to see their beloved village in ruin. Teams of shinobi and civilians alike were working diligently to douse the flames and pull the bodies of the dead and injured from the debris. Standing in a stunned silence, the group of jounin was approached by one of the Konoha gate guards, an unremarkable-looking chunin with short, spiky brown hair, dressed in standard Konoha shinobi garb and with his headband hanging around his neck. The Hokage has requested the presence of all jounin and available chunin to the academy auditorium at once. The guard stated, straight to the point. What happened here? Asked Kurenai in a small voice barely above a whisper. I'm sure that's what the Hokage wishes to speak to us about, replied Kakashi before taking off in the direction of the academy. The academy auditorium. It was one of few places remaining in Konoha large enough for such a gathering. Most of the village, save the clan districts and the districts close to the Hokage monument, had been left in ruin. As you all know, the village has just endured its most devastating attack since its founding, said Minato in a strong, even tone, despite his inner turmoil. Kushina and the twins were in the Konoha hospital being cared for by Shizen. Tsunade and Rin were needed to care for the more seriously injured citizens. Naruto had been brought to the hospital by Obito soon after and was currently standing watch over his mother's bedside. The night's events had scared the young Namikaze, who had suddenly become extremely protective over his mother. And I'm sure you all know by now what has become of the Kyuubi, Minato continued, followed by a low murmur throughout the crowd. Minato waited for the muttering to die down before continuing. Since you are all aware by now, I see no reason to keep the truth from you and allow rumors to spread. The Kyuubi has been sealed inside of my two newborn children, Minato stated flatly, followed by louder, more incessant chattering. This time Minato didn't wait for the crowd to quiet itself, instead projecting his voice over the rabble. This information is to be an S-class secret. We cannot allow our enemies to know the identities these two innocent and vulnerable infants, not until they learn to control the bijou inside of them and are able to defend themselves. He could see the doubt in the eyes of the vast majority of the group. No doubt they would project their pain onto the containers of the beast they had lost so much to. There will be those who wish to harm them to take the power sealed inside of them and use it against our home once more. We will not let that happen. He didn't need to hear it to know what many of them were thinking: kill the monsters and be rid of the demon inside. Minato needed to get ahead of this train of thought. Mito and Ashina are not responsible for this attack, and will not be treated as such. They will be treated as loyal citizens of Konoha, Minato said forcefully while managing to keep his emotions in check. Minato looked at all those present with a frown on his face. The true enemy is the man who released the Kyuubi into our village. Now he had their attention, a masked man claiming to be Uchiha Madara. The auditorium erupted into loud chattering, a mix of both fear and confusion. 3 years ago we received information leading us to believe that Madara is still alive, and since then we have sent 6 squads of A and BU to find and eliminate him. None have returned. We had all but given up the search until now. A direct attack on Konoha is more than we are willing to take. From this point onwards, it will be our top priority to find and assassinate the man responsible for this tragedy. Jiraiya, standing several steps back from his students, studied the crowd. They've come together under a shared goal. Unfortunately, that goal is to spill even more blood. The Toad Sage thought with a frown, "Be careful, Minato, you're treading on dangerous ground." But Minato had been pushed to this. The near death of his wife, the brief attempt on his children's lives in order to release the Kyuubi, and the destruction of his home had pushed the Yondaime Hokage too far. Although he would vehemently deny it, Minato was acting on his anger. We have close to no information on Madara, so any direct attack on the man is impossible. The Konoha spy network's main purpose is to gather information on him, and when we find Madara we will rid the shinobi world of this threat. Minato finished. Rather than cheers or applause, he was met with icy silence, especially from the Uchiha. Having one of their own commit such atrocities was beyond their forgiveness. "I'm not sure I like the sound of this," thought the scarred one-eyed Uchiha in the second row. Konoha Hospital, 1 week later. "Ugh! When are you going to get out of this damn hospital?" shouted Kushina. She had been ready to pull her hair out after the third day. "Kushina, you had a biju extracted. Anybody else would be dead after something like that," said Tsunade calmly. Her calm demeanor, however, was only due to the fact that they had strapped Kushina to the bed after her third escape attempt 2 days prior. "But it is good to see that you're doing so well after such a traumatic experience." "Heh, a little biju extraction isn't enough to keep an Uzumaki down," exclaimed Kushina with a wide grin. She would have flexed and grabbed her bicep to further drive the point home, if not for her restraints. "If there's a hell, I'm sure it would be a fucking hospital. Damn, I hate this place." The only thing that had made her stay even remotely bearable was the presence of all 3 of her children, the youngest 2 in a crib by her bedside, and Naruto seated adjacent to both her and the twins. "Kami, he's become protective." Over the past week, Naruto had not left her side once, except for a quick trip to the bathroom in her hospital room. Naruto had been particularly fascinated with his younger brother and sister. He had even been the first to see their unique eyes, one light blue like his and his father's, the other a deep violet like Kushina's. Everyone had to admit that the twins were the perfect mix of Kushina and Minato. Mito had a blue left eye and violet right one, and blood-red hair with golden blonde streaks, while Ashina had a blue right eye and a violet left one, and golden blonde hair with red streaks. They made up the pair of the most perfect twins Kushina and Minato could have ever hoped for. Currently, Naruto had busied himself by tickling the deep whisker marks on his sister's cheeks, causing her to laugh and coo. Despite his playful actions, Naruto had clearly changed, unnoticed by either of his parents due to the excitement from a week prior. All of his movements were careful and calculated. He was uncharacteristically observant, even for one 3 times his own age. "I can still feel it," Naruto thought as he looked down at his 2 younger siblings. "I know it's there. But you're not it," he thought, unknowingly referring to the twins' Jinchuriki status. Over the past several days he had been testing them. He could feel the power radiating from them mixed with their own unique signatures. He had never noticed it before the attack, but he soon realized that that power once resonated from his mother. Now she felt less heavy. If Ka-chan was okay with it before, they'll be fine, he thought with a smile. "Well, Obito has finished the repairs on your home, so you can check out later today," said Tsunade as she watched the heart-warming sight of Naruto playing with his little sister. "Yes. Obito Oniai-san is the best," Naruto cheered. "Now I can finally start working on getting strong like Tuchan and everyone else," he exclaimed internally. He wouldn't allow those he loved to suffer again. Kushina and Tsunade gave the blonde a warm smile. Namike's residence. Their home looked exactly like it had before the attack, however it felt different to Naruto. He felt a powerful energy radiating from the house, something about it just felt right. "All right. Now to start training." Naruto paused mid-thought. He didn't even know the first thing about training to be a shinobi. Fortunately, he had a plethora of powerful shinobi at his disposal to learn from. "Ka-chan, can you train me?" he asked sheepishly. Kushina was taken aback by the request. "I can't now, Naruto-kun, I have to get the twins situated," she replied. "Oh, okay," Naruto said, looking down in disappointment. "Why the sudden interest in training?" Kushina asked, genuinely curious. This was the first time Naruto had ever openly mentioned anything about serious training. Besides, she and Minato had agreed to postpone his training until he started at the academy next year. "Because I have get strong so I can protect you and everyone," Naruto said softly, still staring at the ground. Kushina smiled at that. Unfortunately, she was actually very preoccupied with her youngest children. "I'm sure if you asked your father, he'd be happy to train you." Naruto looked up with a wide smile and ran straight upstairs to his father's home office and family library, where Minato was working at home so he could be immediately present in case anything happened with the twins. Not that he wouldn't be already, with his Hiraishin anyways. "Tu-chan. Ka-chan said you can train me to be a super strong shinobi like you," Naruto embellished, excited by the prospect of being trained by, in his mind, the most awesome shinobi to ever live. "Can you train me Tu-chan, please? Serious?" Minato chuckled at his son's excitement at the idea of training. "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, not today," Minato said over the mountain of paperwork stacked on his desk. Upon seeing his son's puppy dog eye no jutsu in full effect, Minato sighed and walked over to a bookshelf in the corner of the library and pulled out a dusty green book titled Chakra for Beginners. "Here you go, Naruto-kun, this should be sufficient enough to get you started until your mother and I have time to teach you ourselves." Naruto looked at the book wide-eyed. He had just recently started learning to read, but the prospect of learning how to be a kick-ass shinobi overshadowed any misgivings he may have had. "Awesome," he breathed out as if he had just been given a coupon for free Ichiraku ramen for life. "Thank you, Tu-chan," he yelled as he snatched the book and ran to the backyard to begin his training. 1 hour later, with Naruto. It had been over an hour and Naruto had hardly gotten through the first 3 pages. He couldn't even read most of the words. "This sucks," Naruto mumbled loudly in frustration. "What sucks?" asked a familiar female voice. "Rinwa-ni-chan," Naruto greeted happily. "Tu-chan gave me this book so I can start learning about chakra so I can become a super kick-ass shinobi like all of you, but I don't really understand it much." That much was apparent to Rin. She had been watching him struggle to make sense of the same line of kanji for the past 5 minutes. "You want some help?" the teenage Jinchuriki offered, smiling. "Yes, please," he said, welcoming the prospect of learning from his older sister figure. There's something strange about how she feels too, Naruto thought. He had noticed her presence, but her energy felt very similar to the twins, so he had just ignored it. Rin made her way towards Naruto and took a seat on the ground next to him, when Naruto quickly scooted closer to lean against the purple-cheeked kunoichi. "So tell me what you know so far." Chakra is the combination of one's physical stamina and spiritual energy, which one gains from training and experience, Naruto stated, as if word for word from a book. In fact, it was from a book, the very one he had been reading, the very first sentence at that. "Very good, now what does that mean?" she asked. "What did that mean?" Rin let out a small giggle. "Okay, so the first step is you have to feel deep down and find it." Naruto looked at her blankly. "Okay," he said as he followed the vague orders given by the 16-year-old jounin. Naruto looked internally and quickly found his own chakra. "Okay, now what?" "What?" Rin said with no lack of surprise. There's no way, he shouldn't be able to find it for at least another few weeks of practice. "I found it, now what?" It had been almost second nature for Naruto to find his chakra. It was after all what he'd been feeling off of others his whole life. So that's what I've been feeling off of everybody for so long." Rin decided to humor his, not believing that he had actually found it so quickly. "Okay, now you're going to mold it by trying to draw it out," she said. "Now don't get discouraged if you can't do it the first, what the hell." "Awesome! I got it, Wani-chan!" Naruto exclaimed. But how?" was all she could manage to get out. "What do you mean, Wani-chan?" the young blonde asked. "I just felt it like I can feel you, then I pulled it up," he said confused. He thought that's what he was supposed to do. Did I do it wrong? Rin was not a great sensor on her own, but being so in sync with Isabu, she was at least able to register chakra signatures at a close range, and what she sensed was no small amount of chakra. It's damn near Chunin level, she thought, still recoiling from the shock. "Wait, what do you mean by just like I can feel you?" she asked. "I mean, I didn't know it was chakra until just now, but I can feel it from other people." "People and things," Naruto said, not really able to explain that last part. "What do you mean things?" Rin asked thoughtfully. "Like the house Obito Oniai-chan made for us. And the Kyubi." "That's no surprise, it doesn't take a sensor to feel out the Kyubi chakra." "Actually, I can still feel the Kyubi. It's inside Mito-chan and Ashina-chan." If Rin wasn't surprised at first, she certainly was now. "I can feel it in you too," Naruto said quietly, as if it were a secret. "But it's not the Kyubi, but it's a lot like it." At this point Rin was absolutely dumbfounded. How powerful is his sensor capabilities, she wondered. I have to tell Minato-sensei and Kushina-san about this, but not until she tested it out for herself. "Hey Naruto-kun, who else can you feel?" Namake's residence, later that evening. He is able to sense the bijou inside of me and the twins, and he was even able to pinpoint the locations of Jiraiya-sama peeping at the bathhouse, Obito at the Uchiha compound on the other side of the village, and Kakashi training in the Forest of Death," reported Rin, still reeling from the revelation of Naruto's sensor ability. Although he has trouble with unfamiliar chakra signatures, in time, and with training, he may become the most powerful sensor of out time. Kushina and Minato both listened to Rin's report with wide smiles plastered on their faces. When finally Kushina spoke up, "You hear that, Minato? My son is a genuine badass already." "Yes, that is very good to hear," Minato said with a smile. "And his chakra levels are incredible. Greater than most genin," Rin continued. "I can't believe he has so much, especially after tapping into it for the first time." "Yes, that is all well and good, but no matter how powerful Naruto may be, our top priority must remain protecting the twins and coming up with a plan to train them to use the Kyuubi when they're old enough," Jiraiya interjected. "We have an opportunity to have 3 perfect Jinchuriki, and thanks to Minato splitting the Kyuubi in half, Konoha may have its first chance at being able to control it." Jiraiya-sama is right. Mito and Ashina are more important in this instance, and I want you to dedicate all of your efforts into developing a training regimen for them," Minato said to Rin, Jiraiya, and Kushina. As a perfect Jinchuriki, one of Konoha's legendary Sannin, and the former Kyuubi Jinchuriki and Seal Master, he said, motioning towards each of them respectively, the twins could become 2 of the strongest shinobi Konoha has ever produced. "We can't just push Naruto to the side, Minato," Kushina said. "If he shows as much potential as Rin says he does, then it would be a disservice to not train him as well. It'll be nearly 2 years until Naruto starts at the academy. Until then I have a teacher in mind for him," Minato said with finality. Sarutobi Manor. It had been 3 weeks since Naruto had begun his training under Sarutobi Hiruzen. The aging Sandaime Hokage, fittingly known as the Professor, was elated to have the boy under his tutelage. It had been far too long since he had a student. Hiruzen had always thought teaching to be his true calling. "Very good, Naruto-kun," Hiruzen praised between puffs on his pipe. They were working on chakra control by having Naruto focused his chakra to his fingertips in order to balance leaves on each finger. At the moment, Naruto was struggling to focus on holding onto the 2 leaves in each hand. Ultimately, the goal was to balance a leaf on each finger simultaneously before moving on to doing the same with small rocks. "Why is this so hard?" Naruto whined. It was a tedious but necessary exercise, and Naruto was progressing rather slowly through it. "It's because of your large chakra reserves," Hiruzen answered patiently. "You have naturally large chakra reserves, thanks to your Uzumaki blood, making it harder for you to control small amounts of chakra," Hiruzen explained. "You need to learn to isolate the exact amount of chakra you need so you don't end up wasting chakra while performing jutsu, otherwise you'll end up tiring yourself out needlessly during a fight." "If I have so much chakra, then why do I need to worry about using too much?" Naruto complained. "I can just use huge jutsu and beat everyone, no problem." Hiruzen smiled kindly at the boy. "You don't have that much chakra, Naruto. Besides, chakra control is about more than using too much chakra. If you can't properly control how much chakra you channel into a jutsu, then you may use too little, and the jutsu won't work, or you may use too much, and you won't be able to control the technique. On top of that, without mastering basic chakra control, you will have a lot of trouble with genjutsu and elemental ninjutsu." Naruto did have a lot of chakra, not Jinchuriki level by any means, but it was impressive nonetheless. His siblings will no doubt have abysmal chakra control. Despite this, Naruto was doing much better than Hiruzen had expected. "Come inside, Naruto-kun. Let's take a break for now." They had been at this exercise for well over an hour now, and Naruto's focus was drifting. Naruto dropped the leaves and followed Hiruzen inside, hopefully for a snack. As they passed the den, Naruto noticed something that caught his eye. Naruto took a left, leaving his teacher to walk to the kitchen unaccompanied, and approached a calligraphy set laid across a low coffee table. Naruto inspected the perfectly drawn-out kanji that covered the open scrolls on the table. "What is this, Gigi?" Naruto asked as he felt the Sandaime Hokage return to his side. "This is my calligraphy set. I use it to practice my kanji," Hiruzen replied. "Why do you need to practice your kanji? You're super strong, you don't need to write things." Hiruzen chuckled at the blonde's analysis. "Calligraphy is important for many reasons, Naruto-kun," he said, getting some of the boy's attention. "As the Hokage, I had to write to many people, and it wouldn't do for me to have sloppy handwriting while writing to the daimyo or other nobles. Also, flawless handwriting is very important for Fuinjutsu." Now he had the blue-eyed 5-year-old's full attention. "Jutsu. Can you teach me, Gigi? Please?" Naruto begged. The aging Sarutobi smiled. "I would be happy to, but first tell me what you know about Fuinjutsu." "Well, it has jutsu in it, so it must be super cool and really strong." Ha ha ha, well you're not wrong, Hiruzen laughed. Fuinjutsu is the art of sealing. Sealing? Yes, sealing, Naruto-kun. Hiruzen took a deep breath before his explanation. You can use Fuinjutsu to seal objects or chakra. You can even use it to form protective barriers, prevent things from being removed, create explosives, or make silencing tags. The versatility for Fuinjutsu is limitless. The only thing holding back a true master of the art is his own imagination. Naruto's eyes began to sparkle as his attention turned back to the calligraphy set. So cool, he breathed out. That it is. Unfortunately, not many shinobi ever bother to practice the art past the creation of sealing scrolls, or at most explosive tags. Hiruzen informed the boy. Why not? Either because they don't see the merit behind it, or because it is extremely difficult to learn, let alone master. In fact, the only true masters in Konoha are your parents and Jiraiya. Naruto looked up at the old man in surprise. Tu-chan and Ka-chan know Fuinjutsu? Fuinjutsu, Sarutobi corrected. And yes, they are the two greatest Fuinjutsu masters in the world. Wow, Tu-chan and Ka-chan are really awesome, Naruto said just above a whisper. Can we start now? He asked excitedly. Later that evening, Namake's residence. Nobody had come to retrieve Naruto from the Sarutobi manor, so Hiruzen had opted to walk the censor home. They had walked most of the way in a comfortable silence, Naruto thinking about what he had learned that day, while his grandfather figure seemingly enjoyed the cool late autumn weather and clear starry sky. So I got 3 leaves on each hand, new record. And we practiced calligraphy for a long time, plus Gigi said I did good. And we meditated for a while. Wow, what a boring day, Naruto thought. But if Gigi says I have to do all this boring crap in order to get strong, I'll do it. Gigi is the Sandaime Hokage after all, so he must know what he's talking about. This is the 6th time in 3 weeks that they've forgotten about him. I realize they're busy with the twins and work, but to completely forget the boy Hiruzen was deeply troubled at the thought. He loved Naruto like his own grandson and quite enjoyed the evening walk home with him, but it seemed as if he was no longer a priority to his own parents. They arrived at the front door, which Naruto entered, followed by his grandfather figure. Tu-chan, Ka-chan, I'm home, Naruto said loudly, oblivious to the fact that he had been forgotten once again. To him, his Gigi just felt like walking with him. Ka-chan, I got 3 leaves today and Gigi says he's going to teach me Fuinjutsu when my calligraphy is good enough, he informed his mother enthusiastically. That's good, Naruto-kun. I'm sure Hiruzen-sama told you how important Fuinjutsu can be, Kushina replied before turning her attention back to Ashina. Yeah, and he told me that you and Tu-chan are masters, Naruto continued. Do you think you can teach me some? Maybe some other time. If you ask your father, I'm sure he'd be happy to teach you something though, Kushina said, unknowingly dismissing the prospect of passing her wealth of knowledge to her son. Hiruzen's calm smile morphed into a deep frown at what he had gathered from Kushina's response. Naruto-kun, it's getting late, get some rest and meet me back at the Sarutobi manor tomorrow morning. Sure thing, Gigi, Naruto said as he ran upstairs to his father's study to see if he could learn something else before he went to bed. Running up the stairs, Naruto paused as he felt a presence leave from the study window, as well as his father's flaring chakra signature. He slowly approached the door and knocked on the door. Come in, he heard his father say in a slightly shaky voice, as if he were trying to suppress his frustration at something. Naruto slowly opened the door and entered. Tu-chan, Naruto started. His father had been agitated over the past month, not that others could see, but Naruto didn't need to see it in order to sense his father's distress. Gigi is going to teach me Fuinjutsu, and since you're a master, I was wondering if there was anything you could teach me. Minato calmed down significantly at the presence of his eldest son. Smiling, Minato stood up and walked to a bookshelf and retrieved a yellow paperback book titled Fuinjutsu, Level 1. He handed the crisp book to Naruto. This should get you started. How are you liking training with Hiruzen-sama? Gigi is the best. Today I knew I'd made a good choice choosing him as your teacher. Jiraiya-sensei always spoke very highly of him. Minato cut him off. I'm sorry, son, but I have a lot of very important work I need to finish, he said, dismissing his son. Naruto left the office and walked to his room, clenching the book tightly in his hand. He was disappointed by the dismissal but figured his father was just stressed out from work. He was the Hokage after all. He had an entire village to run. 2 months later, Sarutobi Manor. The past 2 months had been very productive in terms of Naruto's training. He had mastered the leaf exercise and the following pebble exercise, evidence of his now impeccable chakra control. Hiruzen had opted to teach his student the 3 Academy Jutsu, which to Sarutobi's astonishment, Naruto had mastered after only 2 attempts each. He had also made great strides in his calligraphy practice, his skill with the brush now on par with most fully grown adults, much thanks to the calligraphy set Tsunade had gotten him when she found him practicing on one of her visits to her former sensei. Naruto had taken his aging master's advice and had not read ahead of his capabilities in his Fuinjutsu Level 1 book, and was currently learning to make standard storage scrolls. After her first visit, Tsunade had started making a habit of attending Naruto's training sessions when she was not busy at the hospital. To say she was stunned by the boy's abilities would be an understatement. She had discussed teaching Naruto some medical ninjutsu with Hiruzen, but they had ultimately decided to put that off for the time being. That being said, Tsunade would not let the opportunity to pass on some of her vast knowledge to the boy slide. She had, however, begun to instruct her surrogate nephew in taijutsu. Naruto had initially wanted to learn the Sarutobi taijutsu style, however it proved to be a poor fit for him, and Tsunade began to teach him the much more physical Senju taijutsu style. While still not a perfect match, it was good enough for now. Naruto could tweak it into something faster and less direct at a later time. The Senju style focused mostly on heavy hits. While Naruto was no weakling and could pack quite a punch, he didn't have Senju strength. He would need to add some misdirection to the style to take advantage of his natural speed over raw power. Over the past month and a half, his regulated training schedule consisted of physical conditioning followed by taijutsu lessons and sparring with Tsunade in the mornings, chakra control exercises for 2 hours after lunch, with an hour of chakra theory taught by Hiruzen after that, and ending with ninjutsu lessons from either Tsunade or Hiruzen. Until they would finally end the training day with calligraphy practice and Fuinjutsu lessons until dinner, which Naruto would have with Tsunade and Hiruzen more often than not. Naruto was happy. He had found all the family he needed in the 2 Konoha legends teaching him. He was also visited by Obito and Shizen when they had time. As active jounin of Konoha, they were kept very busy with back-to-back missions, but they had done their best to make time for the young blonde. Even Rin, who was constantly kept busy with her demanding duty, made time to visit the younger brother she never had whenever she could find a spare moment. Obito regaled Naruto with stories of how well Itachi was doing in his own training, teasing him by saying that Itachi was leaps and bounds ahead of the blonde, when in fact, much to Obito's pleasant surprise, he was about on par with the blue-eyed censor. Much to his own amusement, Obito would do the same to Itachi, eliciting similar responses of frustration and newfound determination from each boy. Either 5-year-old was more than ready to be a genin in the Uchiha Cyclops' eye. You know, Naruto, Itachi already knows how to do fire manipulation, Obito said with a satisfied smirk, for he had played no small role in the training of his step-nephew. Naruto's eyes narrowed at the idea that he had fallen yet one more step behind his best friend and rival, expanding what Obito had led him to believe was already a vast gap. You better start learning some new kick-ass jutsu if you ever want to catch up to the Uchiha prodigy, Obito teased, laughing internally at the inner turmoil he was causing Naruto. Sitting on the porch, Tsunade rolled her eyes. If those 2 boys continued progressing at the rate they have been, they'd probably be able to sweep the Chunin exams alone in 6 months. Now that would be something to see. 2 5-year-old boys meeting on the world's greatest stage after having had knocked out an entire tournament's worth of shinobi thrice their age. Now that's something I'd pay to see. Note to self, when that time comes, bet everything on that boy. I've been asking to learn new jutsu, but Gigi keeps telling me to master what I've already learned before moving on. Naruto was getting frustrated with that answer. How much better could he get at Henge, Kawarimi, and Bushin no Jutsu? I mean, I guess I could learn to time Kawarimi no Jutsu better, and I still use too much chakra for my Bunshin, but still, I'm ready. Well then, what do you want to learn? Asked Hiruzen with a grin as he walked outside. Rasengan, Naruto said immediately. He was eager to master his father's signature jutsu. Tsunade let out a loud snort of laughter. Kid, nobody can do that technique except for Minato and Jiraiya. It even took your father, the most skilled of all of us, 3 years to perfect it. Naruto looked down embarrassed. He didn't have that kind of time to catch up to Itachi. Hiroshin no jutsu? He asked hopefully, only to be met by another laughing fit from Tsunade. Then what can you teach me? Hiruzen looked at the boy thoughtfully. How about a kenjutsu of the Nidaime Hokage? Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Hiruzen said as he crossed the index and middle fingers of each hand in front of his face. In a puff of smoke, another identical Sarutobi Hiruzen stood shoulder to shoulder with the original. Gigi, I already know, Bushi Naruto started to say before he felt chakra emanate from the clone. Tsunade went wide-eyed. Sensei, isn't that too dangerous? Naruto-kun has enough chakra for at least 1 Kage Bushin, and his chakra control is good enough to where he won't waste unnecessary chakra and cause chakra exhaustion, Hiruzen assured his former student. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Naruto yelled, making the same cross-finger seal he had seen moments ago. In several puffs of smoke, Naruto split his chakra into 10 even chunks, summoning 9 solid clones. Awesome! Look, Naruto was unable to finish that last word before he fainted, dispelling his clones instantly. Idiot, Tsunade muttered, unconcerned with the boy's well-being. She could see his chest rise and fall from where she sat on the porch. He didn't even wait to find out anything about the jutsu before he jumped right in. Sometimes he reminds me of Jiraiya too much for my own comfort, Hiruzen said as his sweat dropped. Man, I've got to tell Itachi about this, Obito said, on the verge of a boisterous fit of laughter, before being sucked into a vortex originating from his eye. Seconds later, Uchiha clan training grounds. Hey Itachi, Obito greeted as he materialized from a spinning black hole. You'll never guess what your friend Naruto just did. Itachi diverted his attention from the targets he had set up throughout the forest to practice his shuriken jutsu. The kid just mastered an A-rank kinjutsu on his first try. How's your training going? Obito teased. Without a word, Itachi went through a string of hand seals and breathed out a 3-meter in diameter fireball, immediately throwing 8 kunai through the flames. The kunai caught on fire after passing through the fireball and deflected off each other in midair, scattering them across the forest, impacting dead center of each of the 8 targets, 2 of which being on the reverse side of trees. I'm doing all right, Itachi replied amicably. Fair enough, said Obito with a deadpan expression. Those 2 are going to leave the rest of us in the dust, he thought. I wonder if he actually thinks that this game he's playing is actually working, Itachi thought. Konoha Forest. It had been 7 months since Naruto had been taught the Kagebushin no Jutsu, which only served to exponentially increase the fruits of his training. Soon after recovering from his first attempt at using the jutsu, Naruto had been taught how to effectively utilize the technique. Along with some trial and error, Naruto was able to incorporate his clones into his training, using them almost exclusively for Fuinjutsu training and chakra control exercises. He had quickly discovered that Kagebushin were very fragile and took a considerable amount of chakra, making them wasteful in any combat scenario, so he opted to use them for his more tedious training ventures before dispelling them and gathering their memories. His limit, if he desired to remain effective, was currently 10, not including the original. Any more than 10 and Naruto and his clones were too weak to successfully train, having split his chakra equally 11 ways. Even though this was far better than his first attempt, where 10 clones had rendered Naruto unconscious, Naruto still resolved to improve upon the Nidaime Hokage's kinjutsu. There just had to be a way to manage the chakra output needed for each clone. There was no logical reason as to why the technique had to split his chakra evenly. At the moment, the original Naruto sat meditating upon a stump in a small clearing surrounded by tall, strong oak trees. This was one of the censor's favorite places in the village, only beaten out for the number 1 and 2 spots by the Sarutobi Manor and the newly opened Ichiraku Ramen shop, respectively. The 6-year-old sat completely still in the shade, protecting him from the hot summer sun, feeling out the chakra that surrounded him. While 5 clones were scattered throughout the immediate area, either practicing shuriken jutsu or reading about Fuinjutsu or ninjutsu theory. The original felt out the chakra signatures around him, which, with the exception of his clones, were small and unremarkable. The censor decided to follow these signatures to improve his focus, and Naruto centered his focus on a family of birds. The mother bird had just returned to the nest and proceeded to feed her chicks from her mouth. The chicks happily ate their fill before the mother had decided to fly off and get more. Naruto frowned. His relationship with his family was almost non-existent. His own parents were more like roommates whom he hardly ever talked to. The last time Naruto had seen either of his parents was nearly a week ago. Naruto had departed to the Sarutobi Manor in the morning and ended up spending the night in the guest room like he had come to do so more and more over the passing months. He had celebrated his 6th birthday that night at his Gigi's home. Hiruzen was disheartened by the quality of Naruto's home life, from what Naruto had told him, and what he had seen glimpses of during his evening walks home with his surrogate grandson. Minato and Kushina would greet their son and engage in meaningless conversation with him, but their interactions were a far cry from what they had been just a year prior. In fact, the last time they had spoken with him for longer than several minutes was 4 months ago, when Naruto was so frustrated with the apathy his parents showed him he started to act out in the form of pranks. Naruto had kidnapped the fire daimyo's wife's cat, attached a camouflage seal to it, and had doused pheromones all throughout the village, driving the local cat population crazy with lust. That particular D-rank had lasted nearly 2 weeks, during which time the felines had terrorized the village into madness. Eventually Minato had become fed up enough with the noble woman that he had dispatched his entire reserve ANBU force to find it, which took the elite shinobi 6 hours. It was quite an elaborate prank, which Naruto was rewarded with a 20-minute scolding from his parents, during which they had not acknowledged the fact that Naruto had successfully thrown an entire shinobi village into chaos, and had masterfully created and deployed a level 3 Fuinjutsu at 5 years old, something neither of them had accomplished until they were 13. Tsunade was pissed. She loved that boy as if he were her own, and seeing the look on his face when his parents had left after only an hour for his birthday at the Saratobi Manor was enough to send her to the Namikaze home and beat the hell out of the boy's parents. She would have too if Naruto hadn't stopped her. It's okay, they are both very busy people. If they don't have time for me, then that's fine. You all are all I need, Naruto had said for the small gathering to hear. The party of Hiruzen, Tsunade, Shizen, Rin, and Obito didn't know what to make of the sudden 180 he had made from being on the verge of an emotional breakdown to the look of absolute conviction as he said those words. Kasen and Tusan may be my parents, but Jiji, Tsunade Bachan, Shizen Wani-chan, Rin Wani-chan, and Obito Naizen are my family, Naruto thought before noticing something strange. What is that I feel from the trees? And the air and the earth, is that chakra? He thought before that train of thought was cut short by the feeling of a familiar presence. Naruto dispelled his clones. He wasn't supposed to use the forbidden jutsu outside the Saratobi Manor. He sat patiently waiting for the chakra signature to come within earshot. Hi Itachi, Naruto said, opening his bright blue eyes. What are you doing out here? Just looking for a new training ground outside the Uchiha compound. The clan training grounds have been pretty crowded lately, Itachi said, smiling at his blonde friend. You're welcome to train here, Naruto said, smiling back. Obito Naizen says you're pretty strong, maybe we can help each other. He says the same about you, Itachi said. Wanna spar? He asked. He had been wanting to test his friend's skill for quite some time now. Naruto's smile turned into a confident grin. I thought you'd never ask, he said as he flipped off his stump and offered the Uchiha the sign of peace, as was customary before a spar. Itachi accepted the sign, interlocking his index and middle fingers with the blue-eyed Namikaze before they both leapt several meters back and adopted their respective taijutsu stances. Itachi got into the basic Uchiha stance while Naruto settled into the Senju stance. Something was strange about that to Itachi, but because he never fought a Senju, Namikaze, or even an Uzumaki for that matter, he couldn't place why it looked off. The two prodigies sped towards each other and began exchanging blows. Naruto threw powerful, well-aimed blows at Itachi's head and body, while the Uchiha opted to block and dodge, periodically throwing a counter-punch trying to catch his opponent off balance. Naruto's punches and kicks, while powerful, remained tight and controlled, leaving little room for an effective counter. Despite this, Itachi's defense was proving difficult to get past. He chose to deflect blows rather than meet them head-on, forcing Naruto to overextend on a punch as Itachi sidestepped and struck Naruto's elbow, successfully gaining the opportunity he was looking for. Itachi aimed a kick at the back of Naruto's knee, intending to take him to the ground and force him into the defense, but was forced to block a wide spinning backhand fist aimed at his jaw. Itachi grabbed hold of Naruto's wrist and spun to take Naruto to the ground in an armbar. Naruto somersaulted and escaped from the Uchiha's grip and moved back to get some breathing room. Facing off once more, the two combatants approached each other, more wary of each other this time. They had gotten the first glimpse of each other's capabilities and were now trying to develop a way to pick their opponent apart. Itachi's style was reliant on evasion and countering to force his opponent into a disadvantageous possession, while Naruto was a more direct fighter, playing right into Itachi's wheelhouse. It was time for Naruto to improvise and do his best to remain unpredictable. Speeding towards one another again, Naruto went for a slide tackle, forcing Itachi to jump over him. Naruto dug his lead heel into the ground and latched onto Itachi's ankle as his upper body rose off the ground, causing the dark gray-haired child to fall face first into the grass. Itachi slammed his hands to the ground to break his fall and rolled to the left, avoiding an axe stomp to the back, and rolled backwards over his shoulder to avert the following kick aimed at his ribs. Once again on his feet, Itachi was met with a hard right fist to his left cheek. Instead of staggering back, he spun to the left and struck Naruto in the jaw with a hard spinning elbow, knocking the Hokage's eldest son to the ground. Naruto quickly scrambled to his feet with a wide grin on his face. Why were you smiling? I got the best of that exchange, Itachi said, confused. I've never actually hit someone before, Naruto said sheepishly. Tsunade is too good for me to get anywhere near her. I'm honored to be your first, Itachi said, smiling, unaware of the implication a certain white-haired Sannin would have gathered from such a proclamation. Replacing his smile with a serious expression, Itachi went on the offensive this time. He threw a high round kick which Naruto blocked. Wrapping his arms around the Uchiha's leg, Naruto threw a punch at Itachi's face which was blocked but successfully threw the boy off balance. Naruto stepped forward and swept Itachi's remaining leg from underneath him. Itachi landed hard on his back, knocking the wind out of him. Intent on taking advantage of the situation, Naruto threw a heavy right hand down at the Uchiha. Itachi deflected the blow to the side and swiftly struck Naruto in the side of the neck with the inside of his wrist. Itachi reached his free arm around the back of Naruto's neck and clasped both hands together, pulling Naruto into a side choke. After several seconds, Naruto was forced to tap before blacking out from the blood choke. Both boys sat up, breathing heavily. "Wow, you're pretty good," Naruto said, looking up and making eye contact with a pair of Sharingan with a single tomo. "Hey! No fair. You used the Sharingan. You never said we could use any special techniques," Naruto yelled, pointing his finger in Itachi's face. "What are you talking about? I can't use the Sharingan yet," said Itachi in confusion. "What am I talking about? What are you talking about? I'm looking at your Sharingan right now, you liar." "Wait, you're serious, aren't you?" Naruto said, receiving a contemplative look from his sparring partner. "I guess that makes sense. I shouldn't have been able to react to that last punch of yours like I did," Itachi said before his expression turned into one of pure joy. Naruto returned his friend's bright smile. "Man, you've got to be like the youngest Uchiha to ever unlock the Sharingan." 2 weeks later, Konoha Forest. After their spar, the two prodigies had come back to what they'd come to call the training grove every day that they weren't spending training with their own teachers, catching the other one there more often than not. The two had quickly become best friends and wasted no time showing each other what they knew. They had also spent quite a lot of time just talking about stuff, to include their abilities, training methods, and their hopes and dreams for the future. They had briefly touched on the topic of their families, but sensing that it was a sensitive topic for Naruto, Itachi quickly dropped that subject. "So, what's your goal?" asked Itachi, genuinely curious. "I just want to get strong so I can protect the people I care about," Naruto said simply. "I know it sounds lame, but what use is power if you don't use it for the good of those who are important to you?" Itachi nodded in understanding. "Why do you bring that up? What's your goal?" "I want to be the first Uchiha to become Hokage and bring the village and my clan closer together," Itachi stated. Naruto simply nodded at the second part of that statement. They had talked briefly on the subject of his clan's feelings towards Konoha before. "And I only ask because I want to make sure you and I don't have to fight over that spot." "Nah, it's all yours." "I figured as much," Itachi thought with a sad smile. Even though Naruto had said nothing on the subject, Itachi had gathered quite a bit about his home life from Obito after he noticed his best friend avoiding the subject of family. "Hey, check out what I brought," Itachi said as he fished out a few small squares of beige paper. "It's chakra paper." Upon seeing Naruto's lack of understanding, Itachi explained further. "Place it between your fingers and channel chakra into it to find out your elemental affinity," he said as he demonstrated on a sheet which split in two and caught on fire. "It burns for fire, splits in two for wind, wrinkles for lightning, crumbles for earth, and gets wet for water." Naruto looked at the paper Itachi handed him. "So you have fire and wind." Naruto placed the paper between his fingers as Itachi had shown him and channeled chakra into it. The paper split in two and one half crumbled into dust and the other half became soaking wet. "3 affinities: wind, earth, and water," said Itachi, eyes widening slightly. "What's that mean? Is that a good thing?" Naruto asked. "I don't know what it means. Obito-san said that it's very rare to have multiple affinities outside of having a Kekkei Genkai. But as far as I know, your family doesn't have any Kekkei Genkai," Itachi said. Naruto shook his head to confirm that fact. Naruto's confusion gave way to an uncharacteristically cocky smirk. "Looks like I'm more gifted than you, Itachi." Itachi deadpanned. "Sharingan. Damn. I forgot about that," Naruto said as both boys erupted into a fit of laughter. "I swear, Naruto, if I didn't know any better I'd say you were a complete idiot," Itachi said with a light-hearted chuckle. 9 months later. Shinobi Shopping District, with Hiruzen and Naruto. This part of the village catered almost exclusively to shinobi, with only shinobi weapons and clothing shops lining the streets, and a few small restaurants spread around. This part of Konoha was strictly business. Hiruzen led Naruto into his long-time favorite establishment, Rick's Shinobi Goods. The shop was opened and run by a family of foreigners who had moved to Konoha from their home country far to the west several generations ago. "You're starting at the academy next month, so I think it's about time you get some proper shinobi clothing and supplies," Hiruzen explained as they entered the shop. "Go grab 6 sets of clothes and whatever equipment and weapons you want, my treat." "Oh boy!" Naruto exclaimed as he ran into the shop. Naruto decided to start with picking out his signature style, not taking long to decide on a pair of dark green cargo pants, cut off at the mid-calf, mesh armor shirt, a black high-collar zip-up jacket with dark red lining and 3/4-length sleeves, some black fingerless gloves with a metal plate on the back of the hand, and a pair of black shinobi sandals. Cool, sleek, and simple. I like it. Naruto brought the stack of clothes to the front to set down before moving to the supplies and weapons section. He immediately grabbed a dozen sealing scrolls and blank sealing tags, you can never have too many sealing supplies, and moved on to the weapons. He originally intended to go straight for a bow staff, in honor of his master, until something else caught his eye. A black 23-inch katana with a simple octagon-shaped handguard and a light brown grip and sheath. Naruto eyed the weapon curiously. He had never trained with a sword, and Konoha wasn't known for its kenjutsu masters like Kiri and Kumo were, so getting it seemed impractical. But something felt very appealing about the idea of using the graceful weapon. "That's a good eye, Naruto-kun," Hiruzen said as he approached the counter behind Naruto. "May I?" the Sandaime Hokage asked the shopkeeper, who removed the weapon from the display and handed it over. "Chakra metal, perfect balance, very sturdy, it shouldn't require a whole lot of maintenance, and it will last you for a very long time. How does it feel?" asked Hiruzen, handing the blade over to the soon-to-be academy student after his analysis. Naruto awkwardly held the blade in his hand. It felt like a perfect fit in his hand, like it was made for him. "It feels great, but I have no idea how to use it. It would be wasted on me," he said, looking down. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes as he looked at the 6-year-old boy. "We'll take it," he said to Naruto's pleasant surprise. "Now go get some kunai and shuriken and we can pay," he said, smiling at the boy. Naruto had a huge smile plastered across his face as master and student made their way to Ichiraku Ramen for an early dinner. "What do you name it?" Hiruzen asked, referring to the sword. Naruto pondered the question for a moment before making up his mind. "Odenta." Ninja Academy Day 1. It was a warm early September morning, the perfect weather for some training out at the training grove. However, instead of their preferred training ground, Naruto and Itachi sat next to each other in the middle of the second row on their first day at the academy. Something was off-putting about this place, and they both knew exactly what it was. The girls. Since they had entered the classroom, they were assaulted with excited whispers, giggles, and not-so-subtle glances in their direction. Naruto didn't even need to be a censor to notice this, but much to his annoyance he was a censor, and he was being bombarded with erratic chakra fluctuations. Although the fangirls' chakra reserves were minuscule compared to the two geniuses, they accumulated to be quite the annoyance. There were a couple of their female classmates that didn't share the unwarranted admiration of the two best friends, Inuzuka Hana, Kurama Yakumo, and Ayam. The girls were all in a heated debate over which of the two boys was more deserving of their admiration before the Chunin instructor entered and quieted them down. The white-haired Chunin looked around the class for a moment. Not too bad an Inuzuka, an Aburame, and a Kurama, Mizuki thought, though the Kurama girl looks pretty weak. Good thing their specialty is genjutsu. But here we have the Uchiha heir and the Yandaime's son. This could be a pretty easy 6 years ahead of him if this class was as promising as it appeared to be. "Good morning, class. My name is Mizuki-sensei, and I will be your academy teacher for the next 6 years," he said with a kind, friendly inflection. "Now, let's get started. Our first lesson will be on basic chakra theory. Who can tell me what chakra is?" Later that day. "I can't believe that's it." Naruto was visibly disappointed. He had thought that the academy was going to be a continuation of what he had already learned. Hiruzen had warned him that the academy would probably be boring for him, not that Hiruzen told him why, but he quickly found out why. He and Itachi both knew everything that the academy was going to teach. And over 6 years? He had learned everything on the syllabus in his first 3 months of training, yet his grandfather figure had assured him that the academy was a very important part of his shinobi career. This was the first place Naruto would have to interact with his peers. "I share your frustration," said Itachi. They had both been quiet about their discontent, however it had not shown on Itachi's face like it did on Naruto's. Itachi looked over at his blonde friend and cracked a small smile upon seeing Naruto's face still contorted into a deep frown. "On the bright side, it seems like we're going to be getting out pretty early for the next 6 years. That leaves us plenty of time to train on our own." "Training Grove?" "Training Grove," Itachi replied before both boys sped off and took to the rooftops. A small group of 4 who had been within earshot of the conversation were surprised to see the two leave with such speed. "I thought this all seemed so challenging," said a girl with light brown hair and chocolate brown eyes as her gaze shifted from the direction the two had gone to the syllabus in her hands. "Do not worry about them, Ayam-san. Why, you might ask. It's because those two are geniuses. The blonde is the Yandaime's son, and the other is the Uchiha heir," said a pale boy with spiky black hair, sunglasses, and a green curly brace symbol on his cheek. "That doesn't mean shit, Tatsuma. That just means we have to work harder to catch up to them," said another brunette with clan markings on her cheeks. "Hana is right, we should all go train too," said a sandy blonde girl with her hair done in a thick braid down her back. She was frail and sickly looking, but that didn't matter much to her. She came from Konoha's foremost genjutsu specialist clan. Her weak body wasn't going to hold her back, I'm Karama Yakumo, goddammit, and I'll be damned if I let those two Tems beat me," she exclaimed before being caught in a dizzy spell. The other 3 academy students' sweat dropped at the contradiction. 1 month later. Time had surprisingly gone by pretty fast for the 2 prodigies. They had been breezing through the academy, much to the chagrin of one group of 4, and to the joy of the other aspiring kunoichi. Most of the girls had decided to like both boys. Naruto and Itachi simply dominated in taijutsu training, chakra control exercises, shuriken jutsu, and all other aspects of academy training. Though still best friends, their rivalry had become insatiable. Their taijutsu bouts became longer and more intense each time. It had started pretty neck and neck, but Naruto ended up pulling ahead, now winning more often than not with his superior speed, strength, and agility. Itachi, however, was his better in chakra control, slightly, and far superior in shuriken jutsu, even without his Sharingan. However close those two were, they were far beyond their fellow classmates. Beyond most genin for that matter. When it came to special skills, however, Itachi was given a run for his money against Yakumo, but once again gained the edge thanks to his Sharingan. Naruto was unmatched in his mastery of Fuinjutsu. Nobody else even had any idea as to what Fuinjutsu was, and the young censor was nearing level 3. Yakumo had had enough. Recruiting her 3 friends in Tatsuma, Hana, and Ayam, they had taken to following her self-proclaimed rivals to their private training area after class to try to get an inside look at their training methods. Unaware of Naruto's censor abilities, and Itachi's ability to notice their subtle movements in the bushes, they had been successfully spying for the past 2 weeks, much to the amusement of the 2 would-be victims. "If you insist on following us here every day, you might as well come out and train with us," said Itachi calmly. "Yeah, it's getting kinda creepy," said another voice from directly behind them. Going wide-eyed, Yakumo spun around to face her fellow blonde before being overcome with another dizzy spell. How are you here when I can see you over there?" asked Hana, pointing in the direction of another Naruto who waved back after being acknowledged. Ayam couldn't help but giggle at Naruto's antics. "Hey, I know you," Naruto said to Ayam after his attention was drawn to the giggle. "Your dad owns Ichiraku's. I love that place. Best ramen in the whole damn world." Quite the bold statement indeed. Naruto had never even stepped foot outside of Konoha's walls. "Don't change the subject," Hana said, annoyed at being ignored, fingers still pointed in the other direction. "Kagebushin," Naruto said simply, explaining further when he received a trifecta of confused looks and the impassive face of the Aburame. "They're solid clones I can make of myself using ninjutsu." "We haven't seen you do that before, you two have just been sitting around here reading all week," said Yakumo, regaining her bearings. Naruto let out a good-natured chuckle, followed by a smug grin. "What do you mean? You've been spying on them all week, only one used henge to transform into Itachi. We've been training by the water all week." "Come on," said Naruto, dispelled his clone and leading the others to the river. "If you haven't been reading all week, then that means you've been doing something else, Naruto-san." "What would that something else be?" asked Tatsuma. "Technically I have been reading since I retain the memories of my clones after they dispel. But to answer your question, I've been practicing my kenjutsu, and Itachi has been using my clones to practice his Sharingan genjutsu." Yakumo's brow furrowed at the mention of the Uchiha genjutsu. "Kenjutsu? Why haven't I ever seen you carry a sword then?" asked Ayam, convinced she would not be disappointed with the answer. Naruto wasn't one to let one down, and in a puff of smoke produced odenta from a storage seal he had painted to his wrist. "Fuinjutsu," he said with a smile, displaying his katana for all to see. Once again Ayam giggled at Naruto's theatrics. "I guess the other girls have a point, he is pretty cute," the girl thought, "but I doubt any of them have talked to him enough to realize how charming he is on top of that." "Okay, well, if you're going to be here then you have to train, so get to it," Naruto said seriously before settling into a sloppy kenjutsu stance. If there was no one to teach him, he had to figure it out on his own. 9 months later. Over the past 9 months, all 6 first-year academy students had improved significantly, and had become a very tight-knit group of friends. Tatsuma remained as impassive as ever. Hana stayed much the same as well, remaining headstrong and determined. Yakumo had calmed down significantly, no longer showing any hostility towards Itachi, and rarely against Naruto. The 2 blondes had grown fond of pushing each other's buttons. Ayam, however, had become uncharacteristically shy and quiet. She had had trouble keeping pace with the 5 clan members and after a while began to fall behind. Although she remained number 6 in the class, she was very embarrassed at not being able to keep up, only beating Yakumo in physical training but being blown away in the other categories. Itachi was given a wakizashi by Obito for his birthday, which he had named Anamaru, and had begun training in kenjutsu with Naruto. Anamaru was 19 inches long and made of black chakra metal, similar to Odenta. It had a black sheath with the Uchiha crest painted towards the hilt, and had a white handle with no handguard. Itachi also opted to keep an additional tanto strapped just above Anamaru, which he used for quick slashes and stabs when caught in close to an opponent. Naruto had progressed into level 3 Fuinjutsu, and had started learning elemental transformations, already having completed the Suiton training with the help of Tsunade, as well as Doton thanks to Hiruzen. Naruto had attempted to get Futon training from Asuma, but the young Jounin had been busy and was only able to tell Naruto how to train his futon with the leaf-cutting exercise, which he practiced almost all day every day. Mizuki had insisted that both Naruto and Itachi take the graduation exam and move on to become genin. It was obvious to anyone who watched them that the academy was far beneath their skill level, and keeping them there any longer was a waste of their talent. They had passed the exam with ease and were currently sitting in the classroom for what would be their last day at the academy. It was disappointing that the others didn't move on with them, but they had all been moved up to year 4, putting them in position to graduate within the next 3 years. All except Ayam, who would be kept with her current class. Congratulations, you two. Show up here, room 111, tomorrow at 0800. Mizuki said to Konoha's newest genin. Hi, Mizuki-sensei, the two headband-clad prodigies responded before departing. Later that evening, Namikaze's residence. Naruto walked through the front door of his home after visiting the Sarutobi Manor, where he was congratulated by his surrogate family. Obito had even teleported over briefly to ruffle the blonde's hair and jibe that, with him training Itachi, there was no way Naruto would make Chunin before his little step-nephew. Naruto-chan, is that you? His mother's voice rang out, come to the kitchen, we want to talk to you, she said joyfully. Naruto entered the kitchen where Minato and Kushina were currently fawning over the twins who were sitting on the counter. So you graduated from the academy? Said Minato, standing up straight and his smile turning into a serious gaze. Yes, Toussaint, replied Naruto, mimicking his father's demeanor. Why didn't you tell us you were doing so well in the academy, Naruto-chan? Asked Kushina, looking down at her firstborn with a concerned look. All of Naruto's hurt and frustration came bubbling to the surface, and he was about to lash out before he was cut off, momentarily stifling his anger. I'm sure he just wanted to surprise us, Kushina, said Minato, his expression becoming lighter and a smile creeping onto his face. After all, it's not every day your son graduates the academy a whole 5 years early. He continued, unaware of Naruto's anger rising once again. This is cause for celebration. We will have everyone over for a dinner in your honor Friday night. We're already having a celebration at Gigi's, Naruto stated flatly, not extending an invitation to his two parents. This fact, however, went unnoticed. That's perfect. The Sarutobi Manor is more accommodating for guests than this house anyways, said Kushina. Naruto just decided to roll with it. He didn't necessarily want them there, but he could deal with it. Now that he was a genin, even at 6 years old, he was an adult. Meaning he could move out whenever he wanted, and oh did he want to. So they want to acknowledge me now, for the first time in damn near 2 years, because I've graduated the academy at 6? Naruto fumed internally. Where were they for all his training? They were busy, yeah, but when was the last time they'd even asked? They hadn't said anything about him spending most nights of the week elsewhere. Did they even notice? And if they did they care? Whatever. Naruto said coolly before turning on the ball of his foot and heading upstairs to bed. Doesn't matter to me, as soon as I can afford my own apartment I'll be seeing as little of you as possible. I wonder how long it'll take them to realize I'm gone. That was weird, Kushina thought out loud, turning her attention back to Mito. I figured he'd have more to say than just 10 words. Minato, however, was shocked at what he had just noticed. He could see flat cold fury in Naruto's eyes, although the rest of his face had hidden it well, and had felt a brief flash of killing intent directed at him and his wife. It was like night and day from Minato's point of view. His usually loving and happy son had just looked at the two of them with hatred in his eyes. In reality, Naruto didn't hate his blood family, he didn't anything them, and from his experience the feeling was mutual. Mutual apathy and one-sided neglect was the best way to put his perspective on their relationship. I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting. Naruto thought, there was still a little part of him that would like having them around, and if they started making an effort to repair the relationship he'd probably let them. 0800 the next day, the Academy Room 111. Naruto knew his father had noticed his killing intent leak out. He could feel Minato's chakra spike the moment he felt the unsettling feeling of someone wanting to kill you. Naruto didn't want them dead, he just wanted them to realize on their own what they'd done to him. He wanted them to feel ashamed of themselves and bury any thoughts they might have that they had anything to do with his training. Team 5 will be Uchiha Itachi, Namikaze Naruto, and Yakushi Kabuto," said the instructor, finished reading off the list of newly formed genin teams. "Your jounin teacher will be Uchiha Obito," he added to both Naruto and Itachi's pleasant surprise. As soon as the Chunin left the room, a black vortex appeared directly in front of Itachi and Naruto, revealing Uchiha Obito. "Okay, Team 5, let's get the hell out of here and teach you to be some kick-ass shinobi like me," Obito said loudly with his wide trademark grin and a thumbs up. Obito disappeared once more into his right eye. "How long do you think it'll be before he realizes he didn't tell us where to meet him?" deadpanned Itachi. "I wouldn't hold my breath." Naruto deadpanned back before Itachi gave him a knowing look. Yeah, I'm on it." Naruto closed his eyes and felt around in search of Obito's chakra signature, Hokage Monument. Half an hour later, the two boys arrived atop the Nidame's stone profile, along with a quiet boy a year or two older than them. It would seem like he also graduated early. The boy named Kabuto had neck-length white hair done in a ponytail, wore a pair of circular glasses, a purple high-collar vest with a gray short-sleeve shirt underneath, and a pair of matching purple pants. "Took you long enough," Obito said. "You never told us where to go," said Itachi in an even tone. "You have one of the most powerful sensors this village has ever produced on your team," replied Obito, proud of his cover-up for forgetting to tell them where to meet him. "Whatever," both Itachi and Naruto said together. Obito frowned before crossing his arms and looking away, grumbling about little teams, and how all geniuses are the same, along with some choice curses. Itachi cleared his throat to break his uncle out of his internal tangent. "Oh yeah, so anyways, you're all on a team now. As teammates, trust is of the utmost importance, and the first step to developing trust is to learn to understand each other," said the one-eyed Uchiha, "and in order to understand each other we have to get to know each other. So without further ado, my name is Uchiha Obito. I like to train, spend time with friends and family, and above all I love Konoha. I dislike liars and I hate those who turn their backs on their comrades. My goal is to protect Konoha and all those in it. Protect it from one specific, very dangerous man. Okay, who's next?" "My name is Uchiha Itachi," the other Uchiha said after a moment of silence. Three of them were already quite close, so this was clearly for the benefit of Kabuto. "I also like training, my friends and family, and Konoha. I dislike people who hurt others for no reason, and people who treat the people I care about poorly. My goal is to become the first Uchiha to become Hokage, so that I can bring the Uchiha and the village closer together." Obito smiled and nodded, looking at the other two, prompting them to go. Sensing the older boy was nervous, Naruto began. "My name is Namikaze Naruto. I like training, ramen, especially Ichiraku's, and my friends." Obito's smile shrunk slightly at hearing Naruto intentionally omit his family from his list of likes. "I dislike hypocrites and people who turn their backs on their friends and family. And my goal is to become a very powerful shinobi and the world's greatest seal master. That way I can protect all of my precious people, no matter what." Obito's face dripped into a frown as Naruto went on. He holds so much anger for such a little boy, yet loves those who have acknowledged him dearly. Minato-sensei and Kushina-san don't know what they've lost. Obito turned his attention to the white-haired genin and motioned for him to speak. "My name is Yakushi Kabuto. I like to study and learn new things, and I dislike fighting. That's why my dream is to become a powerful medical nin so I can heal people instead of hurt them," the boy said quietly. "Those are all excellent dreams. Now meet me tomorrow morning at 0800 at Training Ground 5 and we will begin your first training session," Obito said before being engulfed in his signature black vortex. "Wanna go eat?" Naruto asked his two new teammates. 30 minutes later, Soba Restaurant. "I still don't see what's wrong with Ichiraku's," grumbled an irritated Naruto as he looked down at his plate of yakisoba. "Besides the fact that if it were up to you we would eat there every meal," replied Itachi as he happily ate his noodles. "I like ramen as much as the next guy, but I think you have a problem." "I don't see any problem with liking the most delicious food known to man," replied Naruto. "So Kabuto, what's up? You haven't said anything since we left the Hokage monument." Kabuto looked up from his plate of shrimp tempura with a side of miso soup. "I'm sorry, Namikaze-san, I just don't know what to make of being a shinobi now," he said meekly. "What do you mean? You graduated the academy 3 years early, you've got to be really strong," said Naruto to the older boy. "And just Naruto is better, none of that Namikaze-san crap with me," he added. "I know what he means, Naruto," said Itachi. "It's not all fun and games anymore. We're shinobi now, that means that we are going to start doing missions where we will have to do bad things to people, and not always bad people either." Naruto looked at his new teammates with a frown. "I guess I haven't really thought about it. Like I said, I really don't like fighting. I want to be a medical nin like my father, but he told me that I have to be a chunin before I can move into a specialty like that, Kabuto said. I see, said Naruto, looking down at his now half-eaten plate of noodles. It wasn't ramen, but he damn sure was going to eat it. Well then I guess we just have to hurry up and become chunin as fast as possible then, Naruto said with a big smile which was returned by his genin counterparts. 0800 the next day, Training Ground 5. All three genin had shown up early. They all shared the same thoughts on punctuality. Being late is like telling someone your time is more important than theirs, only to find the training grounds empty. In the absence of their sensei, they took a seat on a small group of rocks on the east side of the field, finding some shelter from the morning sun. Naruto opted to close his eyes and meditate until their jounin arrived, while Itachi struck up a conversation with Kabuto. How is it that you graduated the academy so early? I don't recognize your last name, so you're not from a clan. You must have gotten extra training from somewhere. If Naruto had not been so focused on a colony of ants at the moment, he might have felt a brief flicker of Kabuto's chakra at the innocent question. Kabuto merely smiled at his dark-haired teammate. No, I'm not from a clan, I'm actually an orphan. My adoptive father took me in just before I joined the academy. You see, he and his wife are unable to have children of their own and took a liking to me for whatever reason. As for my training, I was trained by root to be the ultimate spy, he thought to himself with a wicked internal smile before continuing after a seemingly innocent pause. My father is the head of the Konoha hospital, as you know, and he has taught me chakra control as well as some medical ninjutsu. Other than that, I always excelled in book smarts, and my taijutsu and weapons proficiency was enough for me to graduate early. Kabuto finished with a shy smile, signaling that he was uncomfortable praising himself. What about you, Itachi-san? You and Naruto-san are even younger than me. Itachi smiled, remembering the countless hours he and his best friend had spent training over the past 2 years. Naruto and I have always been close friends, and as such we've developed quite the friendly rivalry over the past few years. I don't think either of us would be here if it wasn't for the other. When we trained on our own, we always showed the other what we learned, which we were able to copy fairly easily, Naruto with his Kage Bushin, and myself with my Sharingan. We were both considered geniuses in our own right, but together I don't think there's anything that can stop us. It sounds like the two of you are very close, said Kabuto. Feeling Kabuto's discomfort, Naruto opened his eyes. You're one of us now, Kabuto. If Itachi and I got strong together, just imagine how strong the three of us will be, Naruto said with a bright smile. With that, the three boys fell into a comfortable silence. If I could feel, then I'm sure those two could become very good friends, Kabuto thought to himself. Half an hour later, a black vortex swirled out of thin air to reveal their jounin instructor carrying a handful of hard candies. Here you go, Obito said with a wide grin as he tossed each boy a treat. His three students looked down at their candy and back up at him. You're late, they said in unison before popping the candy into their mouths. Is it me, or is it kind of weird that those three are already so in sync? Obito thought. My genin team was constantly at each other's throats. Well, at least he and Kakashi were. Sorry about that, I was on my way before I noticed an old lady drop her display of treats at her shop stand. That was at least partially true. He had stayed over at Rin's apartment, and was in no hurry to get out of the shower that morning. Naruto picked up on the perverted grin on Obito's face. Yeah, sure, so how's Rin Wani-chan? Obito nearly choked on his own hard candy before stuttering out his rebuttal. I have no idea what you're talking about. Whatever, I'm just saying, I've felt your guys' chakra when you're around each other, and it doesn't take a censor to catch the subtle glances between you two, Naruto said, rolling his eyes. Shut up, brat, Obito retorted, earning a smirk from Itachi. Anyways, today you three will be taking your genin test. Obito paused, waiting for the reaction he was hoping for. No reaction came. You guys. You're supposed to say, what? But we already took our genin test, or some shit like that. Well, I assumed the academy test, as easy as it was just a prerequisite to become a genin. Now this test is one designed by the jounin instructor to measure our actual abilities and worthiness to become shinobi, Itachi explained, getting a nod from Naruto and Kabuto. After all, there's a lot more to being a shinobi than performing 3 E-rank jutsu and passing a written and physical test. Damn, I hate prodigies, Obito mumbled. Of course they would give him the team full of know-it-alls who managed to graduate early. Well then, since I don't have to explain the why, I'll just skip ahead to the what, Obito said as he held up a set of bells. Boring, said Naruto, only to have Obito's sweat drop. I've already done this one like 20 times with Gigi. The point is teamwork. Obito's eyes narrowed. Okay, listen here, damn it. I don't care how fucking gifted you are, I'm the goddamn sensei here, and you just go ahead and do whatever the hell I say, Obito shouted, with an oversized white-eyed anime head and tick marks on his forehead. Okay, fine, Bell tested as Naruto mumbled, taken aback from his sensei's outburst. Good, I just want to make it clear that from this point on I'm not your friend, I'm not your uncle, I'm your Jounin commander, and what I say goes. Obito said firmly. Now what I'm sure Sarutobi-sama left out was this. There are 2 bells and 3 of you. Whoever does not retrieve a bell will be sent back to the academy, and will be replaced on this team by another genin who doesn't currently have a team. Obito said, once again disappointed with the lack of reaction coming from his students. Begin, he sighed. The 3 genin made eye contact and nodded, all rushing to the trees to set traps, which they would inform each other about when they regrouped later. Naruto rushed to the west corner and began setting up tags. Most of his tags were explosives, but he had also decided to try some tags he had just learned to make. He set several Doton tags on the ground which would turn the ground into mud, and many futon tags in the trees meant to herd his target towards the explosive and mud traps. Itachi went directly south and started setting up ninja wire meant as a distraction rather than a trap. He was sure Obito wouldn't use his Sharingan against a group of genin, so using such a tactic was a viable option in this case. Using his Sharingan, he attached the ends of the wires to weak branches, and set up a network that would trap Obito when he tripped over one of the various threads. Without the Sharingan, it would have taken an exceptional Nara-level genius to predict the movement of the wires when the trap was in effect. Kabuto, on the east side of the forest, set up an area effect genjutsu, designed to subtly make the target perceive everything to be half a foot to the left. If he doesn't use his Sharingan to see through the illusion, this should be enough to throw him off for long enough for us to retrieve the bells. 10 minutes later, Obito stood in the same spot they started in. They're probably done setting up their traps by now. Obito was genuinely curious as to what they had in store for him. I bet that right about now they are briefing each other on what they've done. Time to get to work. All 3 boys were hidden in the tree line discussing their traps when Obito's shun shined in front of them. The 3 genin darted in opposite directions and surrounded the Jounin. Itachi and Naruto unsheathed their swords while Kabuto's hands started to visibly glow with blue chakra. No beating around the bush, I see, thought Obito before making his move towards the blonde shinobi. Naruto let loose a handful of shuriken which Obito easily dodged, then proceeded to fend off a furious barrage of punches and kicks. From behind Obito he heard a loud clatter of metal on metal and dodged another flurry of shuriken that impaled the blonde censor before Naruto poofed, revealing he had switched with a log. Out of the tree line, Naruto rushed once more, joined by Itachi trying to flank Obito to his left. Obito reached out and grabbed the wrists of both genin and threw them away from him with a 180-degree spin. It's a good thing he spun too, because he was just in time to block a chakra-covered hand of Kabuto who had been approaching from the rear. Fuck! Obito grimaced as he felt the tendons in his left forearm tear. Obito leapt backwards into the tree line upon seeing all 3 prodigies regroup and rush towards him in what looked to be a well-coordinated attack. Obito looked up just in time to see a Naruto clone drop from a tree branch, sending a hard axe stomp at his head. Obito grabbed the ankle of the solid clone and threw him deeper into the forest to find it trapped in a web of ninja wire. That was lucky. 10 more feet and that would have been me. To his chagrin, however, the clone performed a perfect kawarimi, replacing it with an unsuspecting Obito. Damn, they're good, he thought before switching himself with the original Naruto. Fucking shit! Naruto cried out, stuck in the cocoon of steel thread. Kabuto ran to free his trapped comrade before he was cut off by Obito. Obito watched Itachi rush over and overcommit to his left hip, reaching for the bells. Obito simply stepped slightly to the right and reached to grab Itachi's wrist to fling him at his white-haired teammate. Where the older Uchiha's hand should have made contact with his clanmate's wrist, he felt nothing but air, that is until he felt the bells be ripped away from his hip. Obito was momentarily stunned before he realized what had happened. Genjutsu. When? Since before you came after us. Kabuto smiled. That was my trap on the east side of the training grounds, but when I told Itachi-san and Naruto-san about it, we decided to use it here as well, he said as he cut down his blonde teammate. I'm just pissed you didn't get to see any of my traps, said Naruto with a huff. They were seriously kick-ass. Naruto, your traps would have blown us all up, said Itachi. Naruto crossed his arms and looked away as he grumbled something nobody else could make out. So we pass, right? Not exactly. Itachi is the only one holding any bells, said Obito, smiling at the implication. Itachi looked at the bells, then at his comrades, then tossed each of them a bell. Okay, so now we pass, Itachi said with a knowing smile. Obito's head dropped with a proverbial rain cloud over his head. I hate geniuses, he grumbled, then lifted his head and looked at the 3 genin. But yes, you all pass. Just remember, in the ninja world, those who break the rules are scum, but those who turn their backs on their comrades are worse than scum. Hi! The three, now official, Genin replied seriously. 1 month later. It had been a long month for Team 5, even for Obito. They had completed 25 D-rank missions, 16 of which they were dispatched to go find the Fire Daimyo's wife's cat, sort of a cruel cosmic justice for what Naruto had done almost 2 years prior. Their daily schedule was, meet up at 0800 at Training Ground 5, where Obito would meet them with their mission for the day. They would usually finish the mission no later than 1100, where Obito would send them to lunch until 1300, when Rin was also on her lunch break. Then they would meet back up to train until 1700, then they would do the same thing again the next day. As much as Obito was enjoying the schedule, or more like the extended lunch break, he was getting restless being stuck inside the village all day every day. He felt like a caged animal, he needed to get out and do something. Plus his team was well prepared for their first C rank. The only reason they hadn't done one yet was because Kushina was so against her 7-year-old son leaving the village, not that she would know how capable he was. But today was the day. With the reports of their success on 25 D ranks, there was no way to justify not sending his team on their first mission outside the village. No, said Minato, after Obito had pled his case. May I ask why not, Hokage-sama? Replied Obito, suppressing his desire to break down and beg. They're too young. At 7 years old I don't think they're ready for what lies beyond the walls, said Minato with finality. But Obito was not finished. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, you have not seen what these boys are capable of. Together they were able to defeat me on their first day as Genin. Granted I wasn't using my Sharingan or Mokuton, but even without my Kekkei Genkai I'm still on par with all but a few Jounin in the village. Their teamwork is second to none, and their individual skills far exceed those of any other Genin I've ever seen. I'm sorry, but using their age as an excuse is not enough to justify holding them back. Obito explained calmly. I just don't want them to be exposed to the horrors of being a shinobi too early, said Minato with a sigh, knowing Obito had him on the ropes. If that's the case, then they should have never been allowed to become Genin in the first place, Obito said. And what would you know about them being ready? I know this is about Naruto, but you've never once watched your son train. If you had, then you'd already know that he and Itachi, hell even Kabuto, will become some of the strongest Konoha has ever produced. Fine, you're right, Minato said, handing his former student a scroll. You will leave tomorrow to Kawa no Kuni to serve as guards for their harvest festival next week. Hi, thank you Hokage-sama. As soon as Obito disappeared, Kushina barged into the office, twins in hand, wearing an elated smile. Minato's eyes widened slightly in shock. What is it, Kushina? If it were even possible, her smile would have widened further in excitement. I'm pregnant. Later that night, Ichiraku Ramen. Yeah, so we leave tomorrow morning at 0600 for our first C-rank mission, Naruto said excitedly to his brunette friend behind the counter. That's so exciting, Naruto-kun, the girl said with a proud smile. She had been working at her father's ramen shop since the academy had let out for holiday following the semester. I'm so happy for you. But you better watch out, I'm coming for you next year. Naruto let out a good-natured laugh after slurping up a mouthful of noodles from his third bowl. I can't wait, Ayam-chan. We'll go on all sorts of kick-ass adventures together. The brown-eyed girl blushed thinking of the kind of adventures she had in mind with the prodigy of Konoha. Damn, I shouldn't be thinking that way. I'm only 7, she thought, shoving the thought of Naruto kissing her under the moonlight after protecting her from a horde of bandits from her mind. I can't wait, she replied. Ayam wasn't a shy girl, in fact she was very outgoing, but she didn't want Naruto to think of her the way he did about all his fangirls. Even though she genuinely liked him for who he was rather than his skill and who his father was, Naruto had been far too vocal about his distaste for fangirls for her to put herself out there like that. Damn, she's cute when she blushes like that, Naruto thought. Wait, why is she blushing? Oh god, now I'm blushing. Why is Naruto-kun blushing like that? He never blushes, thought Ayam as the two looked at each other in awkward silence before Tucci walked out with another steaming bowl of ramen for his best customer. There you go, Naruto M-boy, Tucci said, placing the bowl in front of the blonde, oblivious to the awkwardness of the two friends. Naruto and Ayam both blinked and were brought out of their thoughts. Thank you, Tuchiajizen, said Naruto before finishing his third bowl and moving on to his fourth. Naruto scarfed down his food and bid his hosts farewell. I'll come see you when I'm back from my mission, Ayam-chan. Thanks a lot, Tuchiajizen, Naruto said, trotting back home to go pack. I like that boy, he's definitely one of the good ones, said Tucci. Just remember, no dating until you're 14. He said sternly. It would seem like he wasn't as oblivious as he appeared. At 14? Said Ayam with a stab of disappointment. Yup, that's when your mother and I met, he said with a satisfied smile, which soon morphed into a frown. You know what, make that 15. I am face faulted. 0600 the next morning, gates of Konoha. The three genin and their jounin commanders stood by the gates watching the sunrise in the late summer sky. Okay team, you know the mission, you know what is expected of you, and I have faith that the three of you are ready. Just remember, when you leave the village anything can go wrong at any time. So don't get lackadaisical, and keep your eyes peeled for danger. Obito said, and yes that means your sensor jutsu as well, he added, cutting off Naruto's smart-ass remark. He eyed each boy before giving them a cheerful smile. Alright, let's go. 3 days later, Kawa no Kuni. Although they had gone at a pretty leisurely pace, by jounin standards, the three genin were broke the fuck off. Obito was happy to finally be able to kick back and relax. Damn, I love river country, he thought as he took a bite from an apple while leaning up against a rock down by the calm river. This is the perfect time of year for a mission like this too, still nice and warm, but not blazing hot like it was a month ago, plus all the fresh produce and fish you can eat, he thought happily as he took another bite from his apple. Damn, this shit is good. Make sure you get all the blood out. Your mother will kill me if you come home with your new clothes covered in blood, Obito yelled to Itachi, and by extension the other two. They had come across a trading caravan being attacked by a group of bandits shortly after crossing the border into Kawa no Kuni. Obito had dispatched his genin to take care of the problem in order to blood them early. All had gone according to plan, much to Obito's dismay. Naruto and Itachi had not taken their first kills very well. It was painful to watch them sulk. Each of the three boys got 4 kills, and Naruto and Itachi had made the mistake of looking their foes in the eye as their life faded away. Kabuto was faring much better, Obito assumed because he had averted his gaze as his enemies bled to death, but he wasn't his usual self either. Each boy was substantially less chipper, with permanent frowns skewing their features, Itachi's deep tear troughs only adding to his look of anguish. Nevertheless, Obito still believed it was the right thing to do, better for them to go through this now, in a relatively controlled environment, than in a situation where their lack of ability to cope could prove deadly to their comrades. That night the 4 Konoha shinobi sat around a fire by the river, trout cooking over the fire. I know it's rough, but it's something every shinobi has to go through at some point, Obito said, looking down at the flames. He received no reply from the three, so he continued, it gets easier, not the killing. Well, yes, I guess the killing does get a little easier eventually. When you get to a high enough level in your career you won't even know how many you've killed, but your first one always sticks with you, he said somberly. For a while you'll see their faces every time you close your eyes, then it'll only be sometimes in your dreams, and eventually you won't think about it at all. I think that's the worst part though, when you've taken so much life that it doesn't even faze you anymore, that's when you truly feel like a monster. They 4 of them sat in silence, the 3 freshly bled genin letting their sensei's words sink in. Itachi was the first to speak. I guess the best we can hope for is that all the blood on our hands helps protect the innocent somehow, he said quietly. A few more moments of silence followed before Naruto spoke up. How do we stop it? He received a questioning look from the other 3 in the circle. How do we bring an end to all the violence? To all the needless death? There has to be a way for us to understand each other, and not have to fight anymore. He blurted out so fast his words seemed to blend together. Obito took a moment to ponder the question. That is the real question, isn't it? I do not know, but perhaps that should be your goal, Naruto, to find a way to establish true peace. The next morning, Kanto Village. Kanto was a pretty busy trading and fishing village between Hai no Kuni and Kaze no Kuni. It was nowhere near the size of Konoha, but it was still one of the larger villages in Kawa no Kuni. Preparation for the festival was in full swing. There were merchants from all over the land of rivers, and even some from the lands of fire and wind, setting up shop in the streets of the village. There were all sorts of foreign foods, and game stands, and stages for live music. Obito sent the boys on their way to go get some food and have some fun while he went to meet their client, the mayor. I'm surprised you only hired 1 team for the C-rank mission, Obito said skeptically. We have substantial security of our own. The added shinobi security is for the sole benefit of the Harvest Princesses, said the mayor. She was a beautiful blue-haired woman named Yui. She had big beautiful brown eyes, her hair fell neatly down her back stopping just above her buttocks, and she wore a blue kimono with silver trim and a silver floral pattern. And despite her age, probably in her mid to late 40s if Obito were to guess, her womanly figure was as tight as a woman half her age. Why would these festival princesses need added security? Asked Obito. Because the attractive brunette paused. For the past 5 years there has been a group who has been slaughtering these girls as an offering for another bountiful harvest. She looked at the one-eyed Uchiha before elaborating further. We don't know anything about the group, other than that it exists. We have no idea who's in it, nor do we know how many there are. We just know that before 5 years ago there was a famine, for 6 years nothing would grow, and it devastated our village. That is until a man sacrificed his 3 daughters out of desperation, one to the river goddess, one to the earth spirit, and one to the sun god. Since then the human sacrifice of 3 girls has been a sick tradition for those who followed that vile man's example. She spat the last sentence in disdain. Obito decided not to pry deeper. He already had what he needed to know, well, all but one thing. When do they usually strike? Always on the last day of the festival, the night of the full moon. Damn, that's such a cliché. 1 hour later, shrine a mile from the village. The shrine was deep in the woods, right off the shore of the river. It was actually pretty peaceful. Damn, that's really gay. The full moon? Like seriously? Said Naruto from his seat on the forest floor. We'd appreciate it if you didn't use profanity in this place, said the oldest of the 3 girls they would be guarding from the doorway of the shrine. She couldn't have been older than 12 and had milky white skin, emerald green eyes, and bleached blonde hair done in a thick braid down to her waist with 2 loops of hair on each side of her head. If she wasn't such a stuck-up bitch, Naruto would have thought she was an angel. Whatever, just go back to praying or whatever it is you do, Naruto replied. With a huff and a distasteful look, Ryuko turned around and re-entered the shrine. Of the 3 girls they had just met, Ryuko was by far his least favorite. The other 2 were substantially better. The second oldest, Asha, at 9 years old, had raven black hair parted from the right that went halfway down her back and had bright blue eyes. She was substantially nicer, and was quite vocal about her crush on Itachi. The youngest one was 4-year-old Yuki. She had neck-length blue hair and large brown eyes. While Asha had a crush on Itachi, Yuki was completely infatuated with Naruto. Naruto, for no apparent reason, other than existing, was now the girl's biggest hero. Bitch. Naruto muttered as the door closed. You think she'd be a little more grateful that we're here too? I don't know, save her life. Naruto shouted at the shrine. You shut up, Naruto baka. Ryuko shouted back, storming out of the shrine to get in the shorter boy's face. We didn't even ask for you to be here. We're the festival princesses and we'll do whatever it takes for the well-being of our village. Even dying for no reason. 'Cause that's what they're going to do to you. Naruto shouted back. Their foreheads were now pressed against each other, sparks of electricity shooting out between their eyes. It's not for no reason. It's to appease the gods. There are no gods. Naruto shouted, and even if there were, what kind of all-powerful beings force people to sacrifice their lives for something that doesn't cost those so-called gods anything? That sounds more like a demon to me. I don't care if it's a god, a demon, or even dumb luck. If it works, it works. That way my village doesn't have to go through any of that again. She shouted as tears began to form in her eyes and she stormed away towards the river. Naruto moved to chase after her before Obito stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. Not now, Naruto. Give it a little time. An hour later, after they had gone over their plan of action, to include their rules of engagement, the 2 remaining girls exited the shrine for lunch. Asha immediately beelined to Itachi and attempted to sit on his lap. Itachi quickly shifted to the side, forcing the raven-haired girl to take a seat right next to him. Leaning up against him, she turned her head and whispered into his ear, I know what I want. Itachi suddenly became beet red and gulped. He wasn't going to lie to himself. The offer was very tempting, but he was 7 and she was 9. That was just too inappropriate for him. The young Uchiha stood up and walked to the river. Walking on water, he stopped 20 yards out, turned around, crossed his arms, and took a seat. Why won't you love me, Itachi-kun? Cried Asha, anime tears streaming down her face. Obito let out an audible laugh. If Rin came onto me like that when I was your age, you know what, I'm not going to finish that though. Obito said, but Asha-san, you 2 have only known each other for a couple of hours. Play it cool. Itachi and Naruto get enough of the pushy fangirls back in Konoha. Other girls and my Itachi Kaien? Asha said, her temper rising. Itachi, come over here and explain to me your relationship with these other girls. I should really stop trying to help. Naruto had escaped from his little shadow. It was nice to be treated like a hero by Yuki, but Naruto had walked down the river to talk to Ryuko, to hopefully get to the bottom of their animosity. Ryuko, Naruto said as he approached his fellow blonde. Go away, Naruto baka, was her reply as she looked across the water with puffy red eyes. Naruto ignored her orders and took a seat next to her. Why are you so determined to do this? Naruto asked, knowing she knew what this was supposed to mean. I'm the only one of the 3 of us who remembers what it was like before, she said quietly, tears welling up in her eyes again. Everyone was starving and desperate. Those who could afford to left, and those who didn't turned to thievery. Soon there was less and less to steal, the rivers had no fish due to overfishing, and people became more and more protective over the little they had, and others were more and more desperate to get it. Neighbors started fighting over little thing, then the fights grew into feuds and feuds escalated to blood. Tears were streaming down her face once more. One day our neighbors came over and killed them my mother and father over half a bag of rice. She choked out before being thrown into a fit of sobs. Naruto sat quietly for a moment, allowing her sobs to die down so she could continue. That's why I'm willing to sacrifice myself so nobody in this village has to go through that pain again. Naruto sat for several minutes before replying, and what if it doesn't work? What if it was all just a coincidence and you, Asha, and Yuki, along with all the girls past and future were murdered for nothing? It's worked so far, Ryoko said in a small voice. Just because the famine is over doesn't mean the sacrifices have ended it. If you die, and another famine comes along, then there's nothing you can do to help your people in the future. Naruto said thoughtfully. You can believe whatever you want, Ryoko-chan, but I'm not going to let you die. And I never go back on my word, that's my nindo. Ryoko paused for a second and stared blankly at her fellow blonde. Was that last part supposed to be inspiring or cool or something? Naruto looked back at her with an oldish look. It's just something I thought I'd try out, you know. It's pretty lame, Naruto-kun, she said with a smile. As infuriating as he is, I just can't help but like that little idiot. 1 week later. Over the past week Naruto had grown quite close to the princesses. Yuki was like a little sister to the blonde censor, and Ryoko filled an older sister role. Asha, on the other hand, was still too preoccupied with her infatuation with Itachi to build any kind of relationship with Naruto. Asha had even managed to steal Itachi's first kiss. With the permission of Naruto, permission meaning he suggested it as a prank, Asha snuck up to Itachi while he was sleeping and planted one on him until the Uchiha prodigy woke up, which was several minutes into the kiss. He had only woken up when Asha had decided to get experimental and slip him some tongue. Itachi would never admit that he had quite liked the experience, but had still refused to talk to Naruto for 2 days afterwards. The festival was finally coming to an end. Tonight was the full moon. It's so lame that it's on the full moon, Obito thought once again. Throughout the week, as the girls made their rounds around the festival, Obito had Naruto feel around the immediate area for anything that could be construed as malicious feelings. To everyone's dismay, Naruto had felt it from nearly everyone over the age of 13. There was no way for Naruto to distinguish those who simply wanted the murders to be carried out, and those who intended to do the deed themselves. Going on the safe side, the Konoha shinobi decided to act as if everyone was hostile. On the last day they made their presence known. It was too late to call for reinforcements, so they were forced to bluff. Naruto and Obito made a total of 20 Kagebushin that they hinged into different Konoha shinobi they knew. It was a clear bluff and anyone with any type of political pull would know it immediately, but hopefully it would deter some of the less dedicated hostiles from acting. Unfortunately, they were in for a fight, and it was going to be a bloodbath. With Obito and Mayor Yui. Are you aware that nearly your entire village wants these 3 girls dead? Obito asked the beautiful blue-haired mayor. She looked down sadly. Yes, she said in a small voice. Then you're also aware that this is no longer a C-rank mission. This is at the very least a B rank, and depending on what actually happens it could even be an A rank. Obito said, keeping his voice even, despite his rising anger. Yes, she said again, softer than before, averting her eyes to the ground. I'm afraid that I may be the only one who does not want these girls dead. Is it because Yuki is your daughter? Yui simply nodded at the half-truth. It didn't take a genius to figure that one out, the resemblance was close enough. And the 3 girls from the first time, they were also yours. She nodded again, more impressed than before, but once again, with a little digging, that wasn't exactly hard to figure out either. Obito sighed. This is going to end horribly, you know that. I do. Many of your villagers will die, Obito said. I know. And even then, we might not be able to save the girls, Obito said. I know that too, Uchiha-san, Yui replied, tears welling up in her eyes. Fuck, forget Mikoto and Kushina. Tsunade is going to kill me for this, Obito thought, cringing at the thought of his future beating. On the bright side, Kushina probably won't know about this for hell, hopefully ever. Tsunade and Mikoto are too invested in the boys to not find out as soon as we get back though. Okay, we'll do it. The forest of Kawa no Kuni. Why is this an A-rank mission? Asked a young man with 2 vertical green lines painted down his face from his headband converging at his chin. He wore the standard beige chunin flak jacket and a large white scroll on his back. It's just an assassination of 3 little girls. Why do they want us to kill them anyways? The Chunin asked his Jounin commander. It doesn't matter why, Saru, said the lithe green-haired Kunoichi, her orange bangs which normally framed her face billowed behind her. Kazekage-sama has given us this mission, so we will accomplish it no matter what. Plus, it's not like Suna is in any position to be refusing any high-paying missions like this, said their sandy-haired medic with a smile on his face. Along with their fourth member, a fan-wielding maroon-haired Kunoichi with dark gray eyes and her hair done in two spiky ponytails, the three Suna shinobi leapt through the trees. Dusk, shrine outside of Kanto. The jovial atmosphere that had flourished over the Konoha shinobi and their clients was gone. Everyone was on edge. Asha, who up until this point had been pestering Itachi to return her love, was uncharacteristically quiet. Even the normally calm Itachi was jumpy. Naruto was sitting on a log near the shrine, trying to sense as far out as he could, but was surprised to find that there was no mob forming. Nobody was even approaching the edge of the forest. What do they have planned? Thought Obito after Naruto's report. Good job, Naruto, let me know if anything changes. Several hours had passed, and there was not a cloud in the sky to disturb the view of the bright moon, or stars. Naruto's eyes shot open and his head whipped to his Jounin commander. Obito-sensei, I sense 4 foreign chakra signatures, they just left Kanto and are headed this way. Naruto reported as calmly as he could manage. Naruto gulped before continuing, they're definitely shinobi. At least one high-level Jounin, and the other 3 are a minimum Chunin. They've hired shinobi, said Obito ominously. He was strong, but he was not sure of his ability to protect their clients and his 3 genin. Are the traps ready? He asked his students. Yes, sensei. They all replied in unison. They had set up traps very similar to what they had set up against Obito on their first training day, only this time they had added some explosive surprises, courtesy of Naruto. With the Suna assassination team, they sped towards the location of the shrine. However, something seemed off to the team of Suna shinobi. Why had the people of Kanto village hired assassins for a job that it seemed they could easily do on their own? They had not been informed of any kind of protective detail for the targets, nor were they informed of any abilities the girls had to defend themselves. But as Yashimara had said, they were in no position to not take on the mission, regardless of the unknowns. So for the time being, staying on their guard was the best they could do. About half a mile out from their target area, Saru slipped off a branch, falling to the forest floor. Pakura turned around to see her Chunin subordinate become entangled in a web of ninja wire. Pakura or the rest of the team tried to respond and free their immobilized teammate before they heard the telltale sound of explosive tags burning. None of them could locate the tag's location and were forced into a hasty retreat before the forest went up in a fiery explosion. With Team 5, the trap had gone off, and according to Naruto's report, had been somewhat successful. Thanks to the camouflage seals Naruto had placed on top of his explosive tags, as well to the ends of the ninja wire, along with the delayed genjutsu that had been laid, the enemy was already 100 yards into the booby-trapped area before the explosions had gone off. Naruto sensed the residual chakra of one of the enemies, indicating him to be dead, and the chakra fluctuations of the others which revealed them to have suffered differing degrees of injury. The good news was still not enough for Obito, however. They had only taken out one, and seriously injured another, who according to Naruto, was already being healed, and neither one of them was the Jounin. As powerful as Obito was, he knew better than to take any enemy lightly. Especially a high-level shinobi. Itachi, with me? Naruto and Kabuto, you two stay here with the girls. As much as Obito would have liked to have Naruto's sensing ability with him, Itachi's reflexes were faster and his fighting style favored evasion, which would make it easier for him to successfully fall back if the enemy proved too dangerous. Besides, Naruto's sensory jutsu was the perfect early warning system in case an enemy got by the 2 Uchiha, and the 2 remaining genin were forced to engage an opponent. Itachi and Obito, Sharingan activated, took off in the direction the explosion had originated from. Itachi had drawn Anamaru, ready for action. It had not taken the 2 Uchiha long to reach their enemies. The killing intent emitted from the 2 kunoichi was palpable. The lone male, however, was unsettlingly calm. Obito the Cyclops, growled Pakura. Pakura, greeted Obito. This was not a good situation for the 2 Uchiha. Itachi, said Obito, get back to the others, this is not a fight you're ready for. Itachi immediately darted back towards the direction in which they came before he was cut off by a furious-looking green-haired kunoichi known as Pakura. The enraged Jounin leaked the full measure of her killing intent, causing Itachi to violently flinch, before letting loose a ball of fire at the Uchiha prodigy. Obito swiftly used a kawarimi, switching places with his adoptive nephew, and phased through the scorching hot attack. It seems like we're wasting no time in using our Kekkai Genkai, said Obito, revealing his Manjikyu Sharingan. You killed my student, Bakura said icily. Allied village or not, I will kill all of you, she said before the 3 balls of superheated flames started to encircle her. Itachi took advantage of the momentary lull in the action to shun Shin away and make his way back to the others. Obito smirked at his nephew's instinct. Good, now I can go all out without having to worry about him. But I have to be careful using Kamui and Mokuton. I can't use too much chakra too fast, especially in a fight against her. Yashimaru, Kira, you'll only get in my way in this fight. Go after our targets, said Bakura, her eyes hardening, and kill the brats while you're at it. Obito rushed to cut off the 2 other Suna shinobi before he himself was cut off by a wall of scarlet flames. With Naruto, Itachi, and Kabuto, Itachi had returned to the group and immediately turned around, taking a ready stance. Naruto took his place next to him, Odenta at the ready. Although their kenjutsu left much to be desired, it was still their most deadly option in terms of close-quarters combat. Kabuto took his position several yards behind the 2. As the team medic, it was vital that he remained as far out of harm's way as possible. Tsunade had taught them that early on. Kabuto laid another genjutsu on the area, which Naruto immediately sensed and dispelled, and Itachi saw through with his Sharingan. This genjutsu was another subtle one which he had been working on for several weeks. It would limit the target's speed and power by making them believe they were exerting much more chakra with their movement and jutsu than what they were. The Suna medic and futon user entered the grove and stopped 10 yards away from the Konoha genin. Ah, look how little and cute they are, mocked the maroon-haired Kunoichi, battle fan at the ready. The sandy-haired medic's expression remained unreadable as he stared down the 3 children that stood before him. Although the man's face remained impassive, Naruto could sense the hatred radiating off of him. Yashimaru sent a dozen shuriken at the boys, which was easily deflected by Itachi and Naruto's swords, then leapt into the air to send another dozen hailing down onto Kabuto. Kabuto dove to the side and Itachi aimed 2 handfuls of shuriken directly at the pissed-off medic. Kage shuriken no jutsu, said Itachi as the 8 shuriken multiplied into 2 dozen. A strong gust of wind blew Itachi off his feet, also throwing his shuriken far off target. Itachi looked in the direction the wind originated from to find Naruto already engaging the fan-wielding Kunoichi. Yashimaru stood in front of Itachi and Kabuto. Ignoring the clanging from sword on fan, the sandy-haired medic stared down the 2 genin. You killed my best friend, he said in an unfeeling tone. That was the only explanation he would give before charging his opponents, kunai in hand. Despite Kabuto's genjutsu, he was still fast. It took everything Itachi had to dodge the quick melee attacks. If his Sharingan was not active, he'd already be dead. So this is a jounin, Itachi thought. He knew he was strong for his age, all 3 of them were, and even strong for genin, but he had no idea the gap was that big. He couldn't even get an attack in. Itachi ducked under a horizontal slash meant to slit his throat, and countered by thrusting Anamaru up at his assailant's throat. Yashimaru leaned to the side, allowing the sword to miss to the left of his head, and brought the hard rounded hilt of his kunai into the side of Itachi's cheek. Itachi flew to the side, crashing against the tree, right for the taking. The Suna medic sprinted forward to take advantage of his momentarily stunned opponent before feeling a tearing pain in his lower back, and he collapsed to the ground. Lying on his stomach, he turned his head to see Kabuto appear, seemingly out of thin air, with blue chakra coating his hand. Itachi watched as the genjutsu was dispelled from his enemy. Itachi had seen Kabuto weave another genjutsu while the enemy was occupied fighting Itachi. The Uchiha prodigy had found it strange that the enemy was so focused only on him, but now it made sense. Kabuto had laid a genjutsu that forced Yashimaru to forget about him, then used the element of surprise as soon as he got the chance. The amount of chakra control to pull that off impressive. The sole Kunoichi in the engagement sent a hard kick at Naruto's head. Naruto blocked it but was still sent flying by the sheer force behind it. Kabuto was about to finish off Yashimaru when Naruto flew into him, sending the pair tumbling several yards away. With Itachi back up, they quickly scrambled to their feet and surrounded the pair of Suna shinobi on 3 sides. Yashimaru grimaced in pain as he forced his body off the ground. His mobility was shot, and with his lower back out of commission, it was all he could do to keep himself standing. With Obito and Bakura, their fight was not a stagnant one. Bakura had forced the fight all throughout the forest in order to mitigate Obito's use of his Mokuton Kekkai Genkai. Obito had tried to use his wooden tendrils several times, but they were too slow to catch the high-level jounin before him, and using deep forest emergence to trap her would take too much chakra, more than he had had after using Kamui so many times anyways. Bakura was using here Scorch Release beautifully. The balls of scarlet fire didn't dissipate after they were shot, only after they made impact with something would she lose control of them. They had both realized early on that her Shikutan couldn't burn through Obito's Mokutan, and Obito could easily phase through them using Kamui. Unfortunately, both took large chunks of chakra and, even with Hashirama's cells, his reserves were running dry. I can't get near her, and if the fight keeps going like this any longer I'm going to lose, Obito thought. I can't get near him, and if the fight keeps going like this any longer I'm going to lose, thought Pakura, feeling the strain on her reserves as well. Both Jounin pulled out their kunai and rushed towards the other to engage in a close-quarters battle. What is she doing? I clearly have the advantage here, thought Obito, Manjikyu Sharingan still active. Pakura lunged to thrust her kunai at Obito's throat. Using Kamui, Obito phased through the knife and plunged his own kunai into the green-haired Kunoichi's stomach. Obito saw her eyes widen in pain before a satisfied smirk came over her face, and Obito felt an unbearable pain go up his arm and to his torso. Obito twisted his kunai and slashed outwards, causing more damage to the scorch-release user, before pulling his arm away, revealing scarlet flames flickering over the right side of his body. "Array-I-ga!" he screamed in pain, as Pakura stumbled backwards. Pakura summoned one last fireball, intent on finishing of the Cyclops Uchiha before the man before her disappeared in a black vortex. With her target gone, she reduced the size of the scarlet orb and used it to cauterize her wound until Yashimara could take a look at it. With the bleeding stopped, the amber-eyed woman took off through the decimated forest in the direction of the remaining members of the team. With the rest of Team 5. With Team 5 finally at the advantage, Naruto placed his hands in a tiger seal, Odenta still in hand, and slammed his left palm on the ground, Doton, Doryu Taiga. The hard ground beneath the feet of the Suna shinobi became a deep mud hole. The fan-wielding Kunoichi blew herself into the air, escaping the mud trap. This, however, proved to be devastating for the immobile Yashimaru, who was engulfed in a blazing hot inferno, amplified by the wind from the fan. "Katon, Gokaki no Jutsu!" Itachi yelled, fire still pouring from his mouth. "Kamaitachi no Jutsu!" shouted the enraged Kunoichi, haphazardly sending a powerful gust of sharpened wind down towards the three genin below. Itachi immediately reacted by sending another great fireball to meet the immobile Kunoichi in the air. Once again, amplified by wind, the Suna shinobi was burnt to a crisp. An overwhelming killing intent permeated the clearing as a hail of scarlet orbs sailed towards the junior members of Team 5. There was nowhere to dodge, nothing to take cover behind, no jutsu in their arsenal strong enough to counter. Naruto's eyes hardened as he felt a strange chakra molding within him, and he instinctively held his hands out in front of him and shot out a long twirling mass of what appeared to be wood, which expanded and formed a half-dome protecting them from certain death. What the fuck? Konoha hasn't had a Mokutan user in nearly 100 years, and I've fought two tonight alone. Pakura screamed, internally gritting her teeth after the initial shock wore off. Team 5 was shocked too, but Naruto could sense that Pakura was injured and on her last leg, plus it would seem that by some stroke of divine intervention, they had the advantage once again. All three teammates were on the same page as Naruto sent his wooden branches weaving throughout the clearing, while Itachi sent a rapid string of shuriken and kunai at the scorch-release user. Meanwhile, Kabuto, hand glowing blue, circled to the side to flank her. Naruto's branches were fast and unpredictable enough to prevent Pakura from using them for cover, while simultaneously blocking off any avenues of retreat or attack. She was being boxed in. No, that's not right, she was boxed in, and the box was getting smaller and smaller as Kabuto closed in, hiding himself behind Naruto's constantly moving branches. When Kabuto was 5 feet away, Naruto moved the wood out of the way only for Pakura to thrust her kunai out aimed directly at Kabuto's face. Itachi, who was closing in from the front, leapt forward and brought Onamaru down hard on her forearm, slicing cleanly through her flesh and bone. Before Pakura could even register the pain, a wooden tendril shot up and pierced straight up and through her body, killing her instantly. Naruto felt around, not sensing anything but his two teammates, and the girls, hidden in a wooden shelter made by Obito a quarter-mile north. Sensing no danger, Naruto fell to the ground, exhausted, followed by Itachi, then Kabuto. After about 30 seconds of peaceful silence, Naruto began to laugh, quietly at first, eliciting curious looks from his teammates before they joined in, and soon the unrecognizably transformed clearing erupted into a fit of thunderous laughter. With Obito laid on the hard white ground in his personal dimension. He managed to escape certain death, but only with gruesome injuries of his own. Luckily for him, Hashirama's cells were already doing their job, healing the 2nd and 3rd degree burns covering his right side. Unluckily, however, he didn't have enough chakra to return to Kanto Forest and continue the fight, and wouldn't for another hour, because whatever chakra he produced was currently being used to heal himself. This was the first time Obito was ever disappointed that he couldn't turn the healing off. He grit his teeth with a previously unknown level of frustration, helplessness, and fear. I hope they can manage to survive this one. With Team 5. Although the most immediate and serious threat had been dealt with, they couldn't let their guard down. It would be several hours before the town grew restless from the lack of word they'd received regarding the assassination, and they would attempt to come finish the job themselves. The night was still young, it was barely midnight, and more blood would be shed before sunrise. As predicted, Naruto felt a large gathering of weak chakra signatures forming at the end of the forest, and before long they started to venture in. They weren't moving at shinobi speeds, and with the already rough terrain, made rougher by the destruction caused by the shinobi, along with the traps that hadn't gone off, it would be just under an hour before the mob made its way to the shrine. Those who opted to keep coming after seeing the state of the forest would reach the shrine and find a ghastly display: Pakura skewered from groin to shoulder by a large wooden branch, Yashimaru buried up to his chest and charred black, and the wind using Kunoichi dead with most of her body burned to a crisp. The boys had decided to fall back to the girls' secondary hiding place, and concealed themselves in the trees. Even if the villagers continued searching after the display they'd left in their wake, they would be hard-pressed to find this spot before sunrise. An hour later, a swirling vortex appeared in front of the wooden shelter. Obito stepped out, shirt removed, revealing half his body to be white as snow and the other half to be colored normally. Aside from some soot, he appeared to be unharmed. To his delight, his students jumped down from the trees to report the situation. The Suna shinobi had been defeated, no small thanks to what was a huge surprise to everyone, and the villagers had retreated after seeing what would await them. The sun rose several hours later, and the Konoha shinobi escorted the 3 festival princesses back to the village. Naruto no longer sensed any ill will towards the 3 girls, but felt an immense amount of hatred directed at himself and the other members of Team 5. Everyone stayed more than just a respectful distance, however, most choosing to evacuate the streets upon seeing them. Yui met them in front of the village capital and assured them that with the full moon of the harvest past, the girls would be safe. When saying their goodbyes, Asha snuck another kiss onto Itachi's lips, which to everyone's surprise he returned fervently. Naruto chuckled. I guess there's nothing like a near-death experience to get the juices flowing, is there? Shut up, said Itachi, slightly embarrassed. As they headed back to the village, Kabuto was the one to voice the question on everyone's mind. This is going to end bad, isn't it, Obito-sensei? They had had a full-on battle with Suna shinobi, one of whom was one of their most powerful Kekkai Genkai users, and had killed all 4 of them. Yes. This is going to end very bad, said Obito solemnly. Konoha, 4 days after events in Kanto. Remember, do not speak of Naruto's Mokutan to anybody. There are those who will wish to use Naruto because of it. Obito informed his team. As it stood, the 4 of them were the only ones with any idea about Naruto's newly unlocked Kekkai Genkai. Now go back to your homes and rest. I'll head to debrief the Hokage. The 3 shell-shocked genin nodded and slowly went their ways. After the adrenaline had worn off, they were left exhausted and broken. The events in Kanto had taken a toll on the psyche of Naruto, Itachi, and apparently Kabuto. Obito watched them leave. Hopefully this wasn't too much too soon and they can bounce back, thought Obito. His team was well prepared for any C rank, but an A rank was much too soon for 2 7-year-old boys and a 9-year-old. Once they all disappeared into the mid-afternoon crowd of the streets of Konoha, Obito sighed and went his own way. Normally he would have used Kamui, but he needed some time to clear his head, and a walk through his beloved village was just what the doctor ordered. After half an hour of wandering, the Cyclops Uchiha found himself in front of the Sarutobi Manor. Obito approached the gate, and saw the aging clan head relaxing in the courtyard. Hiruzen noticed his surrogate grandson Sensei and beckoned him forward, taking note of his troubled expression. What's wrong, Obito? You look conflicted. Obito looked around with his Sharingan to make sure nobody else was around, only to see Tsunade walking towards them. Deciding that it was safe, Obito released his dojutsu and waited for the female Sannin to approach. When she did, he wasted no time with a greeting. Naruto has unlocked the Mokutan, he said, receiving a shocked look from both Hiruzen and Tsunade. Hiruzen was stunned, but was slightly amused by the incredulous look on his student's face. I never thought I'd see the day that Tsunade was at a loss for words. Hiruzen's eyes refocused on Obito. Who else knows? He asked, right to the point. Only us and the rest of his genin team. I've instructed them to speak to Noon of this, and have ordered Naruto to not use his Kekkai Genkai until we figure something out. The Shodame's jutsu, whispered Tsunade. It made sense to her how Obito could use Mokutan, But how did Naruto acquire such a power? The Hokage hasn't been informed yet? Obito shook his head. Good, that neglectful bastard would probably brush it off to the side anyways, she exclaimed with re-established vigor. A frown crept onto Hiruzen's wrinkled face. I believe that is the best course of action, he said. As you know, Mokuton is one of the most powerful Kekkei Genkai Konoha has ever had, rivaled only by the Sharingan, and we all know that there are certain citizens who would want to study it in a natural user, and even more who would push to weaponize young Naruto. I'm afraid we cannot trust this information to even the Hokage. We have no idea where the flies on the wall could be hiding. They all knew exactly who they were referring to. The same man who had tried fervently to recruit Obito when he had returned with both the Manjikyu and the Mokuton, Danzo. So our best course of action is to keep this quiet for now, said Tsunade, receiving a nod from both Hiruzen and Obito. Shouldn't Obito train him to use it properly? From what I saw, his prowess with Mokuton far exceeds my own. Within minutes of unlocking it for the first time, he was able to use it to defeat Shikuten no Pakura with the help of his team, Obito said, receiving stunned silence from the two legendary shinobi. There is nothing I can teach him. 45 minutes later, Hokage office. Obito finished his brief and handed over the scrolls containing the bodies of the dead Suna shinobi. Obito had taken credit for the death of Pakura. It was undoubtedly a Mokuton jutsu that had killed her, and they had agreed to keep Naruto's Kekkei Genkai a secret for now. He would have to repay Konoha's only other Mokuton user for taking credit for killing such a high-value target somehow. All you can eat at Ichiraku should suffice. Minato was unsettlingly calm throughout the briefing. His normally bright welcoming blue eyes had progressively grown harder and colder as the debriefing went on, and now his gaze seemed to be like eye cycles piercing his former student. However, there was no killing intent behind it. Obito was unsettled by his Hokage's demeanor. The political ramifications from this won't be good, Minato started. If I'm right about who the other two were based on your description, they were the Kazekage's sister and brother-in-law, Minato said, eyeing the scrolls on his desk, though there is no way to be sure of that, he added. Take these to Suna, return the bodies of their dead shinobi and explain what had happened. We cannot avoid all political fallout because of this, but if we're lucky our alliance won't be dissolved entirely. How's Naruto holding up? Not very well. I talked to him and he's putting on a strong face, but it's eating away at him, Obito said, slightly surprised at the concern. Obito brushed it off, neglectful as he was. It was still a father's job to worry. I'll talk to him, Minato said, steepling his fingers in thought. Now go deliver our consolations. Obito nodded and picked up the scrolls once more. Hi, Hokage-sama, he said before being overtaken by a black swirl. Send in Kakashi, said Minato. The masked Jounin walked into the office and reported to the village leader. As you know, we are receiving guests from Kumo next week to discuss an alliance. Minato started, foregoing any formalities. With recent events in mind, this alliance is more important than ever. Therefore I want you to be in charge of their escort team. By escort, you mean follow them and make sure they don't try anything, confirmed Kakashi. That's exactly what I mean. Ichiraku ramen? Naruto didn't want to be alone, and if he went home that's all he would get. He didn't feel like answering 100 questions about his first mission outside the village from Tsunade. Hiruzen of course would take the hint that Naruto didn't want to talk about it, but the Busta Senju would have been persistent simply out of worry. Naruto just wanted some quiet company and his favorite comfort food. Ayam was about to ask about his mission, but upon seeing her blonde friend's face she had decided to drop it for now. Hello Naruto-kun, she greeted with a warm smile. Hello Ayam-chan, Naruto replied with a weak smile of his own. Can I get a large miso ramen with extra pork and a beer? Said Naruto. Haha, you can have the ramen Naruto-kun, but I'm afraid you're about 12 years too young for a beer. Tochi laughed. Naruto nodded, clearly not expecting that second part of the order. Ayam eyed her friend with a worried expression on her face. I'm fine Ayam-chan, said Naruto. It was just a rough mission, that's all. I don't really want to talk about it right now, but I'll tell you about it later, he promised. He managed to muster up another brief weak smile, meant to be reassuring, but only managed to increase Ayam's concerns. After finishing just one bowl, Naruto paid but continued to sit at the booth in silence for another 15 minutes before getting up and quietly walking away. Naruto's strange behavior did not go unnoticed by Tochi, who frowned and looked at his daughter. Go be with your friend Ayam, I can handle it from here today. Without hesitation Ayam ran out of the restaurant and caught up to the blue-eyed censor. Naruto made no indication as to whether or not he wanted her there but continued wandering the streets silently with her at his side. After wandering for what seemed like hours, Naruto and Ayam found themselves atop the Hokage monument. Naruto took a seat on his Gigi's head, and Ayam planted herself right next to him. The sun was starting to creep its way towards the horizon, casting an orange glow over the village. It was a beautiful sight to behold. The orange sunlight reflecting off the rooftops in the village below made the village look like a sea of warm, comforting fire surrounded by a sea of dark, luscious green. They sat and watched the sunset in silence until the bottom of the sun touched the horizon. The red glow of the sun hitting the clouds made the sky look as if it too were a dying fire, as the dark reds and oranges darkened further into various shades of violet. It would have been the perfect moment for Ayam, had Naruto not been in such a somber mood. To hell with it though, it was too perfect an opportunity for the love-struck girl to pass up. She leaned her body against his and rested her head on the shoulder of the object of her affection. She could feel Naruto relax before she felt him shudder. She looked up to see tears streaming down his face and heard his breath hitching as he tried to suppress his sobs. Ayam was confused but simply placed one hand on his back, taking his hand in the other. He hadn't realized it, but nobody had given him any sort of comforting touch in weeks. He had been there with Itachi, Kabuto, and Obito, and even though their sensei had talked to them about some of what they were feeling, there were no reassuring touches or hugs or anything of the sort. Guys just don't do that for each other, and it'd be weird if they did. She leaned against him once more and rubbed his back in a soothing manner, and before long Naruto's sobs subsided. "What's wrong, Naruto-kun?" she asked just above a whisper. "I didn't think it would be so hard, you know," Naruto said, trying to regain his composure. "What happened?" Ayam asked. Now she was truly concerned. Naruto was the strongest person she knew. What could have been so hard to push him to this? "I had my first kills, 5 of them." Naruto paused, 6 if you count the guy that blew up in the trap. Although Ayam didn't know what it felt like, she could empathize with him. It wasn't something people talked about much, either because it hurt to think about, or because those who haven't killed before never thought about that particular what if much at all. He's not even 8, and he's already killed 6 people. Obito-sensei says it gets easier, and that I'll learn to cope, but he also said that's when you feel most like a monster. Naruto said, slowly calming down. "I don't want to be a monster. Ayam-chan, I became a shinobi to protect everyone from monsters." "You'll never be a monster, Naruto-kun." She let go and turned his face towards hers, cupping his cheek in her hand. "No matter what happens, you'll never be a monster to me," she said, leaning forward and planting a kiss on his forehead. "You'll always be a hero to me." 1 week later. Naruto had felt much better after talking with Ayam. He could still feel her lips on his forehead when he thought about it, which never failed to bring a blush to his face. He had also talked to Tsunade, Shizen, and Hiruzen about it. They had all shown sympathy and shared some advice, but nothing had helped as much as his talk with Ayam. His parents had not said anything about it. If Naruto didn't already know that Obito had debriefed the mission to his father, Naruto would not have known if his parents knew at all. Not that Naruto cared. He had long since given up on anything other than a respectful working relationship with the two. Working relationship only because his father was his Hokage. Kushina had been busy doing things for her pregnancy. She was now entering her 2nd trimester, and Naruto had hardly seen her in the weeks since he'd been back, not that he cared. It didn't take Naruto long to get used to the idea of having another sibling. He was not at home very often as it was, and even when he was, he didn't mind the twins following him around like lost puppies. The twins were almost 3 now and were developing their own distinct personalities. Ashina was loud and rambunctious while Mito was more reserved. It was endlessly entertaining for Naruto to watch Ashina try to get Mito to do anything. Naruto was telling Itachi about the twins attempting their first game of ninja, after a late-night training session, when Naruto felt someone trying to conceal their chakra signature. "It's not an ANBU, I recognize most of them, and this signature feels excited? Very un-ANBU," Naruto thought. "What is it?" asked Itachi, noticing Naruto's sudden break in the story. "I feel something strange going on west of here," said Naruto. "Let's go." The 2 genin sped towards the disturbance Naruto had felt, and as they got closer Naruto found that he was right to have been suspicious. The perpetrator had broken into the Hyuga compound and was making his getaway with a minuscule chakra signature in hand. Naruto and Itachi caught up quickly and cut off the masked man with the small girl tucked underneath his arm. Naruto leapt to the man's side and sent a heavy round kick at his face. The man ducked underneath the kick only to receive a kick to the chest, courtesy of the Uchiha prodigy. The kick loosened the man's grip on the Hyuga girl and Naruto quickly snatched her away. Making a Kaige Bushin, Naruto performed a quick Kawarimi, and the clone, now holding the white-eyed girl, darted back to the Hyuga compound to return their heiress and return with backup. Naruto and Itachi unsealed their swords and took their ready stances. Naruto held Odenta in a reverse grip down by his side and immediately rushed the masked man, while Itachi sent a single kunai with a sealing tag attached directly behind him. Right before Naruto made to slash at the enemy, which the man was ready to block, he seamlessly replaced himself with the kunai at his back. With literally no time to react, the man took the kunai directly to the chest. The flak jacket took the brunt of the impact, causing the kunai to barely scratch the enemy. Naruto, 2 feet behind the kunai, sent a hard push kick directly into the hilt of the knife, burying it deep inside the enemy's chest cavity. Naruto was pushed away by the force of his own kick and made a single-hand seal, releasing the ninja wire sealed within the tag. The masked man went wide-eyed as the wire wrapped tightly around him, leaving him an immobile, bleeding heap on the ground. Hayashi had seen the engagement from afar, through his Byakugan, and was speechless at the swiftness that the two children had dispatched the presumably powerful enemy shinobi. He had seen Naruto slip the kunai into Itachi's weapons pouch when he was snatching Hinata away. They worked together so well, it was like they were an extension of each other. Kakashi had also arrived in time to witness what had transpired from the trees. I thought Obito was mostly full of shit when he bragged about how good they were. The engagement had only taken 15 seconds, and they had captured the enemy alive for questioning. Hokage office, 1 hour later. Thankfully nobody died, thought the Yondaime Hokage, as he continued his staring contest with the hulking, dark-skinned man sitting across from him. This way Inoichi can get the truth out of the perpetrator and figure out where to go from there. Unlike the man sitting across from him, the man known as A, and his only rival in speed, Minato was not the shoot first ask questions later type of leader. Minato was calculating, and in the past few years had become colder as well. In the office with them was Kakashi, Hayashi, Naruto, Itachi, the third Kyumo shinobi who accompanied A, as well as Hiruzen, and Konoha's warmonger himself, Danzo. They had waited, recounted what had occurred, and A had stuck to his guns, saying he had no idea of any plan to steal the Byakugan. You really think that if we came for the Byakugan we would have sent Yugi after him? I would have been able to capture her, and be halfway back to Kyumo by now. The burly Raikage-san growled. If you truly were here for peace talks, then you wouldn't have been so rude and difficult to deal with since you got here, replied Danzo curtly. To say Danzo was a suspicious man would be an understatement. From what I've put together, it is clear you never intended to form an alliance, you only wished to steal one of Konoha's great Kekkai Genkai. I could give two shits about your precious Kekkai Genkai. Spat A. Kyumo has thrived as a great shinobi village without such crutches. To hell with them. Maybe Kiri has the right idea. A's eyes narrowed dangerously and his fists audibly clenched as his temper rose. I'm telling you, I had no idea this would happen when I came here. In truth, A had only been so uncooperative in the peace negotiations because he was stubborn by nature and acted on his feelings, mostly anger, more often than not. Danzo would have scoffed, if not for his impeccable bearing, and you really expect us to bell? He's telling the truth. Naruto spoke up, growing tired of the pissing contest that was about to start anew. They had been here for nearly an hour now, and every 5 minutes the same argument reared its nasty head. All eyes were now on the blonde child. And how would you know that, boy? Asked Danzo, clearly irked at being interrupted by a child. If he was lying I would feel his chakra shake, said Naruto, doing his best to explain what lying felt like to his sensory jutsu, but all I've felt from him any of you is the spike that happens when people are angry. Every shinobi in the room looked at Naruto curiously, everyone except for Hiruzen, Itachi, who were both well aware of how powerful Naruto's sensory capabilities were. This runt was able to take down a high chunin with his friend in a matter of seconds, and now he's one of the most powerful sensors I've ever seen, thought A, narrowing his eyes slightly. Namikaze Naruto, you could be a problem in the future if negotiations go south. I didn't know his sensory ability could do that, thought Minato. He could have a promising career in TNI. Hiruzen eyed Danzo, who was scrutinizing the blonde boy. It was unsettling for Hiruzen to watch his arch-rival study his surrogate grandson so intently, especially considering what Danzo's line of work involved. I'm sure you'd love to have Naruto and Itachi en route, but make any move on them and I will kill you myself. Before anyone could question Naruto further, or continue their argument, Inoichi entered the Hokage's office. The blonde man cleared his throat before speaking. Asama had no idea about this plot. It seems that Yugi wanted the Byakugan for himself and intended to go rogue and join Oto, whatever the hell that is, and get them surgically implanted. What? I screamed, chakra flaring visibly. Where is that traitorous scum? Inoichi went wide-eyed and choked on the sheer killing intent radiating off the monstrous man before him. Minato came to his rescue. A-san, forgive me, but I would prefer if we could interrogate him further so we can gather more information about this Oto before you do what you see fit. grit his teeth and allowed himself to calm down and ease up on his killing intent, allowing Inoichi, Naruto, and Itachi to breathe again. Very well, Hokage. If we are done here, we can continue our negotiations tomorrow. Walked out of the room, followed by his remaining companion without confirmation. You are all dismissed, said Minato. Naruto, I would like to talk to you for a moment, he said, as everyone else filed out of the room. Hiruzen and Itachi spared Naruto a glance, only continuing on their way after Naruto gestured that he was okay with the request. Yes, Hokage-sama? Said Naruto in a professional tone. Hokage-sama? What's that about? Minato thought before shrugging it off as his son acting like a greenhorn. How did you and Itachi defeat that man? Naruto knew what he meant, but decided to play dumb. You heard the report, we retrieved Hinata then I mean, he's supposed to be in the running for Jounin. How is it that two fresh 7-year-old genin defeated him so easily? You would know if you paid any fucking attention. Naruto almost blurted, I guess it was just luck. We surprised him and the man obviously saw us as no threat. We were able to capitalize on him underestimating our teamwork, you know. He said calmly, leaking the verbal tick he used when he was getting emotional. Minato studied his son for a moment longer. Something didn't piece together, but he decided to leave it for now. Very well, go home and get some rest. Obito returns soon, so you should be able to start taking missions again shortly. Yes, Hokage-sama, Naruto said before he shined away. And when the hell did he learn to shunshin? Without hand seals too? I'm going to have a talk with Hiruzen-sama and Obito, Minato said to himself before rereading a note sent to him from Obito. In Suna, with Obito. The Kazekage could not fault Obito and his team, or Konoha for these deaths, but that didn't mean he couldn't be pissed. Yes, shinobi often ran into each other while on missions, and because villages kept their mission information secret, there was no way to know that the two teams were on conflicting missions until first blood had already been drawn. Really, the only reason he was upset was because his sister and his brother-in-law had been two of the casualties. Very well. Thank you for returning the bodies, Obito-san. Tell your Hokage that relations between our two villages will not change because of this incident. As unfortunate as it is, I suppose that, sadly, these things happen, said the Kazekage. The time for revenge will come, just not yet. 1 month after the Hyuga incident. Negotiations had ended with the Kumo representatives and things were looking up. Kumo and Konoha had come to an agreement, and now a formal alliance was in the works, and on top of that, Suna had agreed that no retaliatory measures would be taken due to the events in Kanto. IWA still hated everyone and Kiri was in the midst of a civil war, but that being said, a 3-village alliance looked good as far as hope for peace went. Obito had returned from Suna and immediately threw his students into a hellish training routine. They would exercise from 0500 until 1100 to build up their stamina. These 6-hour training montages were supervised by Konoha's very own Meito guy. Naruto and Itachi adjusted relatively well to the new training regiment, although they were left entirely drained at the end of each session and were barely able to walk on their own after the past 3 weeks of non-stop training. Kabuto, on the other hand, was on death's doorstep by 0900 each day, but somehow managed to continue with the other two genin. If not for Tsunade, the boys wouldn't have been able to continue after the second day. And the days only kept getting harder. Obito decided that their teamwork was exceptional, so chose to spend the time after lunch developing their individual techniques, whether it be taijutsu, kinjutsu, fuinjutsu, ninjutsu, or genjutsu. Needless to say, they all opted out of taijutsu training with Gai-sensei still in such close proximity. Itachi was training in the kinjutsu style that many of his sword-wielding clansmen preferred, while Naruto was still struggling to develop something of his own. Konoha didn't have many who were proficient enough with swords to actually teach, but luckily for Naruto, Konoha shinobi weren't the only shinobi in the village at the time. He had noticed that A's bodyguard, a dark-skinned blonde man with tattoos on either shoulder, wielded a katana. One day, after a particularly hellish day of training, Naruto sought out said man. Flashback. Naruto could sense the location of a very easily. A man with so much chakra and no sense to try to conceal it was not difficult to find for the young censor. Oddly enough, Naruto found the Goliath of a man and his comrade at his own favored dining establishment. Naruto entered the ramen stand to find that A had consumed an ungodly amount of ramen, nearly 40 bowls worth. Now this is the best ramen I have ever tasted, A exclaimed. Tucci and Ayam merely looked on in wonder as A finished his 40th bowl. His comrade was sitting quietly at his side enjoying his own bowl of beef ramen. They don't make it like this in Kumo, do they, A-san? The tattooed man said, although I think our gyoza is better. Tucci's eye twitched slightly. The quality of his gyoza was a touchy subject for him. Naruto decided to go for the bold approach. After ordering his own food, of course. "Hello, Tuchio Jaisen, can I get a large miso ramen with extra pork and Naruto fish cakes?" he asked as he took a seat next to the man he came to see. "Sorry, Naruto-kun, we're all out." "Oh, okay, can I get a large duck ramen with extra duck?" "No, I mean we're completely out of food," the middle-aged ramen chef said. "What?" Naruto snapped his head to the left and glared at the large man sitting 2 seats over. The sight of Naruto glaring daggers at a man 10 times his size, leaning over the other stranger, was a comical sight for Ayam, who let out a giggle. "What are you looking at, brat?" asked A, pulling out his wallet to pay. "You know damn well what. You ate all the ramen!" Naruto yelled. The swordsman stuck his finger in his ear to stop it from ringing. "Well, I have to eat a lot in order to recover from my training, not that a runt like you would know much about that," said A, goading the boy he recognized as Minato's prodigal son. "I do know about training, damn it. That's why I'm here." A raised an eyebrow curiously before exploding into a fit of boisterous laughter. "Get a look at this. The Hokage's brat asking a Kumo shinobi for training. No, I won't train you, no matter how much of a middle finger it'd be to your father. You and I simply don't have compatible styles." Naruto's eye twitched. "Not you," said Naruto, pointing to the other man. "Him?" It was the other blonde's turn to raise his eyebrow now. "Me?" "Yeah, you. I need a Kinjutsu teacher and Konoha doesn't have many of those to go around." The sword master pondered the request for a moment. "Why do you want to be a swordsman? Or better yet, why do you want me to train you? You're an Uzumaki, that clan is renowned for their Kinjutsu prowess." Naruto's eyes hardened. "Because when I become the strongest shinobi in Konoha history, I don't want them to be able to say they had anything to do with it." He received a shocked look from all due to his blunt and rather contemptuous statement. Naruto's eyes were hard and full of determination. After another moment of consideration, he looked over to A, who nodded slightly. "I don't know how much longer we'll be in Konoha, but until our departure you can call me Darui-sensei." End flashback. Naruto had trained with Darui late into the night for just over 2 weeks before they had to head back to Kumo. During that time, Naruto had all but mastered basic Kinjutsu. Darui and A were both astonished by how quickly the Konoha prodigy picked up on the art. He had reached a level that it normally would have taken months, if not years, for the average shinobi to attain. If not for A's rivalry with Minato, he may have regretted allowing Darui to train the Hokage's son, but he couldn't have been more elated after learning of the poor relationship the two had. They had not left Naruto with nothing either. Darui had given Naruto scrolls for a long-forgotten style, Shinmei Muso Ryu. The style wasn't used anymore because of its difficulty to master, along with the lack of masters to teach it. Darui had told Naruto that the Shinmei Muso Ryu was supposed to be very fast and hard-hitting. While fast, it also required accuracy and near-perfect timing to master. With wide, powerful slashes, it relied on a lot of misdirection. Naruto had also been taught to channel chakra into his blade to increase its cutting power, and was told that elemental chakra would have an even greater effect. Luckily for Naruto, one of his elements was wind, the element with the greatest cutting potential. Naruto had noticed a fatal flaw in the style, in that it left him open to be picked apart by faster, more agile enemies. The larger foes would not be a problem if he could get past their guard. Naruto was training to mitigate the weakness by using his scabbard in his left hand to be used as a blunt striking weapon, and a tool for blocking. The 3 genin had also developed a few new ninjutsu over the past month. With their chakra reserves at an appropriate level, they were now all capable of producing Kage Bushin effectively. Kabuto, being the physically weakest, could only produce 3 before they were no longer a viable option. Itachi was up to 12, while Naruto was able to produce over 20 before becoming too fatigued to fight. Aside from that, they all began to develop more of their elemental jutsu. Itachi learned a plethora of new katan techniques from his clan. Kabuto was just starting to use his Suiton affinity, and had discovered he could use Suiton to further advance his medical ninjutsu, and Naruto was learning a multitude of B and C rank jutsu for all of his affinities. "You all are doing well, even by prodigy standards," said Obito, smiling at how far his already talented genin team had come over the past 3 months. "It seems to me that you all have outgrown your current rank, so I would like to talk to you about the next step in your careers," said the one-eyed Uchiha. The 3 boys looked at their sensei attentively, so he just continued. "The Chunin exams are coming up in just over a month. Kumo will be hosting it this time around and has extended an invitation to Konoha as a sign of good faith." Kabuto and Itachi nodded in understanding. 1 month? Damn. That's barely any time at all. I wanted to master Shinmei Muso Ryu before I saw Asen and Darui-sensei again. Naruto whined. "Naruto, you're 8 years old, nobody expects you, or anyone else for that matter, to master a long-forgotten and extremely high-level Kenjutsu in just 2 months. And without a master to teach you no less. I'm sure A and Darui will be more than satisfied with your progression. Fine. Naruto grumbled, crossing his arms, receiving a chuckle from Kabuto and an eye roll from Itachi. Here, fill these out. Obito handed the 3 the exam entry forms, and for the next month we will continue training to prepare you for the exams. The 3 genin took the forms and looked them over. Hey, this says the responsible village is not responsible for any deaths that may occur during the exam, Naruto said. These exams should not be taken lightly. People die in the exams almost every time they come around, Obito informed them. They all nodded, unfazed by the prospect of being put in a life or death situation when faced with older, more experienced genin. The training grove, with Naruto and Itachi, 1 month later. The 2 teammates and best friends stood on opposite sides of their old training ground. Their swords were drawn and they were panting, completely soaked in sweat. They had decided to have one final spar before heading off to Kumo for the exams. News that a rookie team of underage genin, Naruto and Itachi age 8, and Kabuto age 10, were going to what would be the largest Chunin exam in recent memory, spread across Konoha like wildfire. You could thank Tsunade's boisterous bragging about her favorite genin team for that. The 3 soon became known as the pride of Konoha, a title none of them were particularly comfortable with. Naruto and Itachi stared each other down, both completely drained of chakra and on their last leg. Itachi's black eyes, no longer able to hold the Sharingan active, and Naruto's blue ones locked, and both boys rushed at the other one last time. They pounded their feet against the scorched earth of the new crater they had made, before their knees simultaneously buckled, forcing the 2 best friends to land flat on their faces. I would have gotten you, Naruto grunted, completely exhausted. Yeah right, like you ever stood a chance, Itachi jabbed back jokingly. Ah, what the hell guys, Kabuto said as he walked through the trees. You know, I could hear the explosions all the way from the Senju compound. Kabuto had been training in medical ninjutsu under Tsunade's tutelage for the past month. We're just having a friendly spar, Naruto groaned, face still pressed up against the blackened earth. How the hell is he talking like that? How is he even breathing like that? Whatever, Naruto was an enigma to most. Only you 2 would call this, Kabuto motioned to the surrounding area, for nobody's benefit but his own, as a friendly spar. Kabuto sighed as all he received in return was an amused grunt from both of his friends. How fucked up are you 2 this time? A pained groan was their only reply. Kabuto sighed and opened the water skin on his hip and drew out some of the medicated water and sent it to heal his teammates. Infusing some of his healing chakra into the water, he immediately got to work on their injuries. Both Naruto and Itachi sighed in relief until they were able to sit up on their own after several minutes. Training with Tsunade-sama is coming along well then? Asked Itachi rhetorically as he massaged his still aching muscles. That spar had lasted for hours. He was going to feel this in the morning. Yes, with the Mizu no Chiyu Jujutsu, water healing technique, I should be able to seamlessly heal the 2 of you in the middle of a battle if need be. Kabuto smiled. That's so fucking cool, Naruto exclaimed. I swear, we've got to be the most badass team of all time. Both Itachi and Kabuto beamed at the analysis. It was hard to argue with that logic. I wonder, is this what friendship feels like? Kabuto thought to himself. For the first time in his life he truly felt accepted? Loved? Wanted? He liked it. 10 days later, Kumo. Team 5 had finally arrived in Kumo after a week of travel. None of them had ever seen anything like it. The festivities were in full swing, and the streets were crowded with people, both shinobi and civilian, from all over the elemental nations. Like I said, largest Chunin exams in recent memory, said Obito to his longshot team. Whatever, they're going to take it all, said Tsunade, who couldn't resist venturing to Kumo to support her favorite group of genin. You 3 go enjoy the festival and find me no later than 2000 tonight. The first exam starts at 1000 tomorrow. I'll go check us in, said Obito. It didn't take Naruto long to find what he was looking for, the ramen stand that supposedly had the best gyoza in the entire elemental nations. Hello, can I get a large miso pork ramen with extra pork and 5 orders of gyoza? Naruto asked the dark-skinned waitress behind the counter. Coming right up, she said. You 3 don't look like you're from around here. Did you come for the festival? Naruto pointed his thumb at his headband with a big smile on his face. Nope. We're here to win this thing. The girl behind the stand looked at the 3 Konoha genin with a puzzled look on her face. But you're so young, you can't be older than 9. 8 actually. Well, except for Kabuto, he's 10. Naruto said, eyes squinted. Really? How? The girl was genuinely curious as to how these 3 kids were already testing to become Chunin, where most didn't achieve the rank until they were twice their age. "You'll just have to watch and see us win this whole thing," Naruto said cryptically. The teenage girl smiled at them. She liked them and kind of hoped they did win. "Okay, what'll it be for you two then?" "What do you want to do now?" asked Itachi after they left the ramen stand. Naruto had a bulging belly from all the gyoza he'd eaten. "How about we find some games we can play?" Naruto suggested, struggling to speak after overeating so much. That gyoza truly was delicious. "Sounds good to me," said Kabuto as he led the group to some shuriken throwing games. Itachi made quick work of the targets, winning game after game. He had drawn quite the crowd and had won most of the prizes from the stand. He was left with a huge stack of stuffed animals as winnings. "Ha, you want a storage scroll for those, Itachi?" asked Naruto. Itachi smiled and started handing out his winnings to the younger members of the crowd that had gathered to watch. He received some squeals from some of the girls around their age, but mostly looks of gratitude from parents, and looks of awe and admiration from the younger kids. "Beat that, Naruto," Itachi challenged after distributing the last of his prizes. "Choose the game." "You just want to see me get pelted with balls, didn't you?" Naruto said as they stood in front of the batting cages. Itachi shrugged. "You said I get to choose. Do you forfeit?" "Yeah, right, give me the bat, mister." Itachi handed the man the money. "Turn it all the way up, please," Itachi said quietly. The man smirked and did as he was asked. Naruto got in the batter's box and a ball immediately hit him in the face as soon as he turned around. What the he, another ball hit him and got stuck in his mouth. Itachi let out a hearty laugh. "You have to hit the balls, Naruto." The next ball flew directly at Itachi after a loud crack from the contact with the bat. Itachi's eyes widened. Good thing there's a net there. Naruto found his groove after his first 2 misses, and he didn't miss again until the machine finally puttered out. The man running the stand was on his knees crying as Naruto passed out his prizes similar to how Itachi had, however he kept 4 for himself. 1 for Ayam, 1 for each of the twins, and 1 for the new baby when she's born. Naruto still loved his siblings, they weren't at fault, and he had promised Ayam to bring her something back before he had left to Kumo. "And this one's for Ayam-chan," he said as he sealed a stuffed flaming blue cat twice his size into a scroll. He ignored the jealous growls many of the girls let out when they heard him say he was saving the best prize for some other girl. "All right, Kabuto, your turn. What do you want to play?" asked Itachi. Kabuto led them to a stand where he had to use a paper net to fish out goldfish from a bowl. He too dominated at this game thanks to his mastery of Suiton and delicate touch, but drew a far smaller crowd due to the game being far less action-packed. Because of a single 4-year-old girl was the proud owner of 40 new goldfish. For the rest of their free time the boys simply wandered the village, fully aware